I'm in Max. You are listening to Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. I'm in Max. Pursuing the RPG hobby with reckless abandon.
Why, hello, and welcome to Season 19, Episode 19 of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. My name is Stu.
My name is Gina.
This is Jib.
I'm Jason.
No Stork today. Stork has the sniffles.
We killed Stork.
You have a pen.
We killed him.
But also, thank you,
All of
Stork,
them.
for keeping your cold at
Yes.
home.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Yes, we don't want your plague.
Yeah.
In this,
Did you want that, or is that for me?
you can. I don't. Was that for me?
Oh, for you,
That's
because
mine,
you asked
yeah.
for a
Yes,
writing
for a writing
utensil.
implement.
Yeah.
In this episode of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast, we will discuss sidebars, note passing, and other methods of keeping PC secrets. Axel sends us a story about his gaming youth. Eric from New Jersey has some L5R woes. Zach from Chicago writes in about fixing boring combat. And Manuel writes in about creating a group. But before we go on to that, if you'd like to email us, you can email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. That's happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. I muted your mic if you need to cough more.
No, I'm good now.
Okay.
Thanks.
We're on Tweeters.
Tweeters.
Happy Jack's RPG, all one word, and also Instagrams, Happy Jack's RPG, all one word. If you want to watch us live, you can watch us every Friday night at 8 p.m. Pacific time, happyjacks.org/live, where you'll find links to the YouTubes and to the Twitches and
all the fun places.
and all the fun things. And hello, chat room. There are chat room people there. It's nice
Chatty
to see you.
Chattertons.
Hey, chatters.
And I think that's it for that. And if you would like to support the show, you can go to happyjacks.org/Patreon, Patreon.
We put up fun stuff for our Patreons.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Yeah. Good stuff. Diaries, articles.
Games.
Yep. Electronic
Stuff.
little assistance.
Strange pictures.
Right.
Yeah. Strange pictures,
Yeah.
especially.
So, in our last session of Blood, Blade, and Tusk, which happened on Sunday, and the actual play is up. I think it went up on Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm very coffee today. We had a moment where Gina's character, who has a secret, had something to do, and so I did what I almost always do in games, is ask. What I would normally do if it wasn't an actual play, is say, "Hey Gina, let's step outside,"
Right.
And we'll just go
But
and have a
that's
quick sidebar.
Sidebar.
More practical to do it here with the microphones.
With mics and the cameras, it's
Right.
like, can everyone else click and go on? And I'll call you back. And I don't know, it was probably 5 minutes, I'm guessing.
Maybe 10,
Yeah,
but
okay.
not long.
I wasn't counting.
So, and then there were some people in the chat room who were like, "Oh, you shouldn't have to clear the room. They should just not metagame."
Well,
And it brought up an interesting question.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
really good.
Yeah, a lot of people do handle this really differently.
Right.
And for me, for my part, I'm in that camp where the players they're all there to enjoy the story as much as
Yep.
me, the game master, let's say. And so I'm a firm believer in character knowledge and out of character knowledge are firewalled, and I trust the players to keep that separately.
Right.
And I know I think maybe it was you were saying you like the idea of being surprised as well.
Absolutely.
But
And let me preface this
Yeah.
with, for those of you in the chat room who know who you are. There is no right or wrong here. I don't think there's a
I
right
agree.
way or a wrong way to
agree.
do it.
Yeah.
And I think what we're going to find out, it's going to come down to what you prioritize is
Yeah.
being important in your game.
yeah, and at your table too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that's
And in the moment.
Well, and the other thing we talked about is this is not personal. So this isn't about Gina shouldn't have or should have, or so I don't feel like that at all with this conversation. I thought it was really interesting,
okay. But we do all know
Topic.
Gina was wrong. That's
except for those of us
You're
who
sitting
are,
in the wrong place
those
to
of us who are
make that statement.
correct. who think
totally
it was
kidding. I'm
totally
kidding.
awesome. No, I know you are.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead with what
They're saying interesting things in the chat room, so I was like,
I'm sure.
Because I will Londo your head thin.
As rightfully so. Rightfully so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoy, like when the audience sees the killer's face in a TV show or something, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, we know who it is," and the detective hasn't figured it out, and
Right.
they're going around. She's interviewing everybody. Like, "It's him. He did it.
Right.
We all know." Like, I think that's as much fun as an episode where we don't know who did it.
Go ahead.
Well, you had.
I do. I have thoughts.
Face.
I have thoughts, but go ahead.
Okay. So for me at my table, I don't like player secrets. Character secrets are great.
Yeah.
But I don't like player secrets because I've been at so many tables where things devolved into characters fighting. I've never had players fight each other, but I've had characters
We should hope not.
wind up fighting each other.
Right.
And for me, that is the most tiresome, time wasted. Like, it is the least fun thing that could happen at an RPG table, in my opinion. And I know lots of people love that. And in fact, they encourage it, and they will set up special. And again, the game you're playing might be dictating that to some degree. Like Vampire encourages that sort of thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably why I don't play Vampire. Is I'm there to play a cooperative game where the characters are essentially all wanting to do the same thing,
Right.
and stabbing each other in the back is not fun for me. But if that's what your table enjoys, then by all means you should do that and keep secrets and pass notes and have people step out and do that.
Oh, definitely. The chat room said a couple things I thought we should. First of all, the Real Great Worm says there's got to be a right way. So let me go check and see what Fear the Boot says.
Okay.
And Forrest says, I punch the best. So what I say is right, and my left fist says, do sidebars away from everyone else.
I'm for me, and I don't play as often as a lot of other people do. I tend to GM more. But I like to get immersed into the character to the point where, not like immersed like an actor using the method.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I want to know what my character knows, and I don't want to know what my character doesn't know. And to me, I like those surprises. I like that moment where I find out, oh, so-and-so is this. Now, a lot of times, to be completely honest, those big reveals rarely are as dramatic and surprising as
Big reveals
we think they're going
rarely
to be.
have the impact that you hope they're going to have.
And in part because of something you already kind of referenced without saying it, and Jason said a little bit, that it was pretty obvious something was going on. Because you and I started
Slacks
slacking
and
more,
sidebars,
and that thing I said I was going to do, I'm doing that thing,
Right.
and so it becomes sort of
Right.
not.
But
the
I mean, if
elephant
I was
the
a
room,
player
but-
in that game, I still don't know
Yeah.
what it is. I just know that you got some
Thing
kind of
going on.
secret. You
Yeah.
know what I
You
mean?
got stuff going on, and I have to say that I am firmly in both camps because I like both of these answers at different times. Like right now, as a player, I know what Gina's character's deal is, but I don't know what is exactly going on right now. So both of those things are pretty cool. I think that it's situational, and I think a number of things get involved in it. Among them, how are your players going to react? Can the players that you have sitting at the table separate these two things? If they can, okay. But if they can't, then you kind of have to do that for them.
Well, for me, the sidebar doesn't come down to trusting players to not metagame. I assume players are going to do their damnedest to not metagame.
I agree.
I mean, I've played with people in the past who don't, and that's a bummer. But for the most part, most of the people we play with, all of the people we play
Or at least
with
going to try.
are not going to
Yeah.
metagame unless it's on some weird subconscious level. And that's
Right.
one of the things that what do we call it? Schrodinger's metagaming. It's like, okay, I now suddenly know this secret about Gina's character, but I had this idea of something I was going to do. But if what I know of Gina's character, that's going to thwart what she was going to do. But are people going to think I'm doing that because of that, or? But I came up with the idea before that, so
Before
I'm really
you knew.
not. And or if I came up with it after, did I come up with that idea because I know that, or you start second guessing what you're metagaming and what you're not.
And
metagaming?
here's how I think you have to make that decision. does the thing, whether you're metagaming or not, the simple question is, does the thing I'm about to do contribute to the game?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sure.
Okay, I found out as a player that Gina's character's doing something, and I had an idea for a way that I could possibly make that cool, make that fun,
Mm-hmm.
and in a collaborative, positive way, put myself into it.
Positive metagaming.
Positive,
Right.
Okay, that's cool. Now, if it's going to be I'm going to screw with what Gina's doing, that's a bad plan. But guess what? That was assholery anyway, and it was going to be a bad plan either way.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and one of the things I liked though was that I guess that it full carte blanche gave Stu the right to fuck with me any way that made sense to him and made for a fun story.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that, do you know what I mean?
What in a way that he couldn't have done if we were all in the room?
No, in a way that I guess would have been... Okay, so here's where it started. Maybe I will talk about this for a second. Because I've never really done it to that extent either. Like, I've had character motivations that I'm not sharing, but not big,
Sure.
big secret. And they end up being, sort of obvious when you're playing with people, even in Vampire. Where you have aspirations and you have things going on. At some point when you're trying to engage certain characters and do certain things, people are going to suss out what you're trying to do.
Right.
So for me, I've never really done anything like this. I think the biggest deal I ever had was I played a changeling in a game once where everyone thought my character was human and I was totally trying to telegraph it and no one ever guessed, nor did they care.
Oh, okay.
But in this game, I had kind of come up with a character concept, and I love the setting, as we all do, and we've talked about it, but there's some pretty serious religious meatiness to the setting. And I don't go for playing hyper-religious or kind of characters like a zealot.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, this is awesome. I want to totally play this character that hates orcs, thinks orcs are abominations, because it's like these demons came on into Western Europe, took over a bunch of land, presumably killed people. So I want to play that character, and then what happened?
Well, I wanted to play an orc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went, oh, okay, I should probably rethink my character a little bit. And then I went, or maybe...
Or she could be quietly
or-
super racist.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like a lot of people. Or not
Yeah,
as
no,
quiet,
I know what
but-
you mean. So I thought, well, maybe I'd change a little bit about what I thought about the character, but maybe I do keep this hyper-religious, very devout character whose allegiance really is to the Western Roman Catholic Church, and not any lord or government or political organization. It's more about that.
Right.
And that's kind of where then this character sort of spun into a different direction.
Yeah, I just had an interesting thought, because we have both sides of the spectrum going on at that table. Because you have a secret that nobody knows about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a secret that everybody knows about.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
true.
And that none of our characters know.
None of your characters know about, and if any of your characters, well, you and Stork could find out, and it'd probably be okay.
It would- but it would
if
be
she finds out,
impactful, yeah,
I
but-
am so boned.
Right, yeah, she's
Yeah.
going to spit you and cook you.
Yeah. Let's find an inquisitor. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of us is going to end up having to die.
Yeah.
If that happens.
Well, that I don't think that's necessarily true, because there is such a thing as character growth.
Yeah.
Sure, but both of us are going to have to grow a fair bit before we got to that point.
Sure.
And if that happens before we get there,
To me, one of the big things that can make this work, whichever way you like doing it, and I say this about a lot of different things in gaming, is talking about the environment you want at your table ahead of time.
Yeah.
Like, sit down with your players, GMs. The players can't bring this up because it's a super awkward thing to bring up. So GMs, you have to sit down with your players. I would say this is the right answer. Sit down and talk to your players and talk about what your secrets environment is.
right?
Right?
Well, it's part of the implicit contract of play.
Right, but I think
It needs to be
having
explicit.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
having an explicit conversation
No,
about
I think so, too.
guys, a bunch of you have secrets,
Yeah.
and we're going to pass notes to deal with that. That's how I like to run the table, and that's how we're going to do things, and we're going to keep secrets that your characters wouldn't know, and that's how I want to do it.
sure.
Or how I like to do it, I'm going to say, guys, all our secrets are out on the table, and that's just, I don't like passing notes. I don't like taking people in the other room, so I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So just so you know ahead of time.
It certainly makes for a faster game.
Well, yeah, it doesn't take that much time, though.
And the only time that becomes a problem is when the player has knowledge of things going on in the game that their character doesn't have, and they inadvertently slip. They don't mean to.
Well,
Sure, but I've had that happen, and most of the time, everybody in a very friendly way says, "No, I don't think your character knows that, right?" And we even just this
Yes.
week on BBT, we were talking about something like that of like.
and it's come up in masks.
Yeah,
and
like I know somebody did a thing, but my character didn't see it, and I think it was me. Somebody had to go, wait, I don't think Karat actually saw that, and I was like, oh yeah, you're right, and that's okay. I think that's an okay conversation to have at the table. And then the flip side of knowing all the secrets, which I like, is half the time for me, I end up like if I know. Let's say, like my current theory is that Gina's character is actually a Catholic assassin, and she's like an assassin for the Roman Catholic Church or something. Like that's what I hope is true. I've actually decided not to listen to this week's episode. I always sit down and listen to them, and I'm like, well, this is how our table's doing it, so I want to respect that process. But when I do know, and let's say I happen to know that she's an assassin for the Roman Catholic Church, I would actually put myself in like reasonable character steps, right, of things my character would reasonably do, but I would actually put my character at risk or in danger of...
Oh, make yourself a target in however way.
To give rise to possible role-playing moments, because that is just as fun for me. That it's not, I guess that's a form of positive metagaming, or not positive, it's metagaming. But to me, the exciting thing is what these characters do together.
Sure.
Right? And so anything that can make that happen more is what I'm excited about.
And that's what I think, I don't know, 2 or 3 things. One is that I think there are a lot of genres where this can come up. You play an espionage game, you play a heist game, you play any sort of Song of Ice and Fire. There are not just vampire. There are going to be people at the table that potentially have double cross, all sorts of stuff.
Paranoia.
That might be counter to what other
Paranoia
people
is
at the
so
table
great.
have going on. And I do think, like you, Jason, I really enjoy. In fact, we talked about this, I think, on Sunday, probably on camera, maybe. I really enjoy all the parts of the game, and I don't care if I'm not in a scene for 45 minutes, an hour, because I enjoy that just as much. And like you said, I really do trust the people at the table. Like Stu said, every once in a while there might be somebody that tends to metagame, and that's a bummer. Mm-hmm. But I have seen, and this isn't why I made that decision, I guess I just thought it was such a big character thing that I don't know. I just didn't want to spell it out initially, and I knew it would come up. And but I think there are times that players in character will start to say they don't trust the character, or they wouldn't tell that character this thing, and they wouldn't. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think it's hard sometimes to separate yourself from the meta story that is going on and the actual role play.
And sometimes it can be a total miscommunication. Like we had one of those Sunday as well. Because from where Azim was positioned, okay, I was under the impression that Azim had seen Adeste go into the cloister.
That's my impression as well.
And come back out. But there's no way I could have. She made a stealth roll, and she was successful.
Okay.
There is no way I could have seen that.
She got lost in the vineyard somewhere.
So I made character decisions based on that understanding that were not really valid
Right.
because of that. So I will retcon that without saying anything else about it.
Okay.
For our next session.
I actually don't have a problem with that either, and I honestly don't have a problem with all that my character sheet being completely like we could talk about it freely. I have no
Go ahead.
problem with that.
That's up
because
I don't. The reason I do it is because
Yeah.
as a player myself, that's
Yeah.
kind of my preference. It's
Well-
like in the Tomorrow Legion
Yeah.
thing, we fought something. I missed this last session, but the session before, we fought these things, and they look like, I don't know, kind of like, they look like giant mechanized loths.
Careful about spoilers.
That was like almost 2 weeks ago now. I assume.
This is a month. Yeah, 2 weeks for sure.
But we fought them,
Yeah.
and
I'm like 4 months behind.
and now it may have had something to do with the fact that we weren't playing the rules right. I'm not sure yet, but but my railgun was not doing as effective as I was hoping it was going to be. Now that also may have been Dave saying, "I want this thing to happen," so, but who knows? But then on the forum, we were talking about some of the things we fought, and people said, "Oh, well, the thing you fought at the stadium, which was like a couple of sessions before that, was one of these things." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm not even going to look that up. I don't. The guy doesn't know that. All he wants to do is go out and meet people and enjoy the company of a lady once in a while, and be a hero. He doesn't.
a big goddamn hero.
It's terrible details. I don't need them." So and then I basically stopped reading that thing because I was afraid they were going to start to say what the next thing we thought was, because I don't want to know.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Had an interesting semi-related occurrence last night. I was on another podcast, and we were talking, and I made the observation that the players in our games would, totally embrace the negative side of their hindrances. We're talking about Savage Rules, and uniformly, all of the other people on the podcast said, "That's because you have spectacular players." I was like, "Well, yeah, that's
the
true."
negatives are a lot of fun. That's maybe the most fun. I wonder if this is a related piece or unrelated, but something that occurs to me in just having pre-conversations that I think are important. When we set up the Desert of Despair story, I intentionally let everyone know, look, at least this chapter, in the very beginning, our 8-week run, I said, there's a bunch of undead. We're rolling up new characters. Most of what you fight is undead. Don't take a bunch of poison effects. That's metagaming. That's me metagaming my players. But the effect of having everyone make something of like, oh, I'm going to make a poison assassin guy, and like, buddy, you are not going to have fun.
Right.
So that's a version of I think what I'm not explaining well is like getting to that part of metagaming that can help the game, where like you don't. I don't like the gotcha moment of like, oh, you didn't play the rule right, or you didn't pick the right weapon, or like that's just not fun.
That's no fun. And it's important to remember that at the end of the day, we're playing a game.
Right.
Beers. They're playing a drinking game.
Oh.
I wish I could give you beers, but thumbs up.
I think, for me, it's just a personal preference of I want to be surprised. I want to just figure this stuff out on my own. It's like even like in game, I could go, because we're at whatever the name of Castle Refuge or whatever. I could go in and say to librarians and say, hey, what's that thing that just came in here? Oh, it's this. Blah 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 blah. If they know.
Well, let me ask you: if you were playing Desert of Despair with us, would you have wanted to know to not take poison stuff?
If it's something where the character's going to like become almost completely ineffective, yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Because otherwise it seems like a dick move.
Yeah.
I mean,
so I agree with you. Yeah.
I mean, but then again, when I'm running games, for the most part, I don't know what the first session's going to be until I see the characters. So I get the characters first, and then I look at them and say, okay, what could I do that would make all of these people?
Yeah, that's usually what I have when I'm running a game that's not so on the rails. But since we had a fixed time frame and we were trying to, rush through a module idea, then I wanted to stay relatively focused.
Right.
Well, and I think this maybe relates, it kind of relates to what Jason and I both said, which actually to Stork, I think 100% agrees with you, Stu.
He's an old guy gamer, and
Yeah.
that's what a lot of old D&D.
Oh, man.
That's what it was.
In the old days, yeah, that was totally my shtick.
Sure.
For the game, to the point where I would even there were campaigns where it was like, I'm rolling all the dice. I'm the GM. I'm rolling all of the dice. You just do you, and I'm gonna take care of the mechanics back here, and you don't worry about that.
Yeah.
And would I do it today? No, I wouldn't do it today. But those games actually went really well. They were solid games.
But like we were talking about pet peeves, Jason and I, on Sunday, and because one of my things also, we were talking about crosstalk.
Yeah.
And actually, there were a bunch of people in the chat too. That
Master Vidar.
Oh, right
Cheers.
on.
Cheers.
Woot!
Thank you.
And I happened to notice at that time without getting yelled at.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's good. Because I don't like talk at the table like cross RP for exactly the reason you and I were discussing, where it's not because I'm upset that those people are trying to do a thing. I want to know what, as a player, not as a character.
You want to see that thing happen.
Yeah, that's my
Yeah.
entertainment. So, like, if you and Jib are having
Yep.
a scene, I'm going to wait
Yes.
before I talk to
I
Stu
am.
because, one, I'm
Yep.
interested. Two, we can't really have two conversations at once, especially in a recording.
Yeah.
Right.
But,
Right.
it's,
Yeah, and 100% I find that enjoyable. So I think that is part of what I found, since this is the first time I've actually had a character with a big chunk. It's more than half, or at least half of the character is off camera.
Right.
And I think what's, disappointing is not the right word, but I think what is not as fun about doing that is you don't get to have those scenes. You don't get to be like, I am one step back, I'm a player with my friends playing a cool ass game,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, holy shit, that thing is going to go down. And you don't get to do that at the table with people. Not that it's a big surprising reveal, but just there's scenes that maybe, and that was, I remember somebody in the chat room actually mentioning that too, where it's like, I think there were more people in the chat room that night that actually said they like the secret versus the not secret. But I don't know. I kind of am very torn about it, and it was a decision I made, but it's like, I guess I kind of thought at some point too it's going to be pretty obvious, and then at that point, you just play the game. But like, you can't, Stu, and it's not just because it's a podcast, you can't, for every little thing I want to do, you can't have people leave the room and have a stew shed.
No, and this was the first time we've done it.
Oh, for sure.
And it's kind of because it was a
scene.
It was a big scene.
It was a scene that needed to happen. Instead of just you doing a thing, it's a scene.
Yeah, and I think, so two things. One is just a player in a game, and one is as a person on an actual play. I miss, if you had a big secret, if Korat, the orc shield maiden, had a big secret, I would probably enjoy seeing that and watching that play out. But the second part is, when you're talking about an actual play, there is a huge portion of that particular 25% of the table character that's happening via Slack.
That's true, yeah.
So then those folks, and Stu and I talked about doing like a forum thread that was just to explain kind of what was happening behind the scenes and that sort of thing. But it does become like a less nuanced character, or a less three-dimensional character, because there's stuff that's not happening on screen.
Or, well, it doesn't. It's a nuanced character. It's just not everyone sees
Yes.
the nuance. Yeah.
Do you think that it presents more of a problem because we're doing it on air?
Well, I'll tell you what happened.
Yeah.
When you guys left, I explained to the chat room exactly what was going on, who her character was, and
Yes.
and what was
Just
transpiring.
spilled all the beans.
Spilled all the
Yeah.
beans,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, that's awesome!" Blah blah blah
Yeah.
blah blah.
Yeah.
Right. So though I kind of see that almost like when you're watching Game of Thrones or anything like that, and suddenly you realize, oh, the guy who we thought was so and so's friend is actually the evil guy behind this whole plot. Oh, that's fantastic, right? You see that as the viewer, like you were talking about,
Right.
but none of the other characters or actors see that as it happens.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I think my personal preference of doing it the way I like to do it is definitely born of growing up, teenager, 20s. I ran Shadowrun. That was my first RPG. I skipped right past D&D until like 3rd and a half edition or something. So I was always playing in these high-tech, futuristic
Where
settings.
intrigue is part of the deal.
Yeah, and I had, in one campaign, 2 people separately came and said, hey, I want to play this corporate undercover agent.
A
And
double
I
cross.
want to play a Lone Star undercover cop
Yeah.
in the same group.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? And they were going to, like,
How many people in
track
this
the
group?
group. It was like 4 or 5.
So half the group
Yeah.
is a spy.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, cool, that sounds like a fun character stuff. But in the course of everything unfolding, one, I mean, maybe it was the quality of players, and we were all teenagers or in our 20s or whatever, and but it was, it led to so many hurt feelings. But then also stuff like, I should have gotten insight rolls to see that this person was lying about everything for
That's
the last
kinda-
6 months.
yeah.
Like, really? Okay, so now we have to roll insight rolls every time you have a conversation.
Here's my spin on that particular point, and that is that if you as a player did not bring something up and feed to that role somehow in your play, I'm not going to ask you for it, because you've got to give me some indication that the character is twigging on to something.
Suspicious or
It's
something.
twigging on to
Right.
something going on.
No,
Otherwise, no, I'm not going to ask you for. Because if we start doing that, we're going to be doing dice rolls all night long just to find out what we can talk about in the game.
I agree with you completely, but what I'm talking about is
Yeah.
this horrible, like, TNT
Yeah.
plunger of my gaming group.
Yeah. Right.
That was a
That was just one small thing of the
No,
whole
because
disaster.
thing.
I
Yeah.
kind of can see a piece of that other part of it. It's like it's both sides of that, where it's like I could see that it should be incumbent upon the character in the scene to say, oh, that seems kind of odd. Why is that player doing that?
And
But
then
at
turn to the GM and say, "I make an insight roll to
Yeah.
see if I think that
yeah.
am I suspicious about anything here?"
Yeah. Well, and I hope the player with the secret agent background is intentionally doing some shady shit in front of everyone. As a player,
Yes.
as part of this game, let's do something fun and entertaining
Right.
and see if people key in.
On Sunday in our Bloodblade and Tusk game, after that event happened, I slacked Stu and said, I'm going to watch Adeste to see if she's okay. Mm-hmm. And you slacked him back. I think you said that she was very unsettled or
Something like that.
something along those lines.
Yeah.
But I don't know why.
Right.
Yeah.
I just know that she was upset about something. Maybe she was upset about the monk being murdered.
Yeah.
Maybe she was upset because there was information that we needed that got lost.
Or-
Maybe it was just the shock of the whole thing.
Yeah.
The point is, but Azim's interest here is Adeste's well-being.
Right.
Not suspicion
Not
of her
suspicion.
having done something wrong.
Right. So he's not going to pursue that other than to ask her if she's okay, which he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, me, the player, I had an interesting moment,
Yeah.
just to talk about this specific example. We came back, I was like, okay, Adeste's an assassin, that's fine. And, and then I sort of checked in with Karat's brain, right? And I was like, well, she has the negatives of honest and honorable, and I have since I've decided to interpret that as she has trouble picturing other people being dishonest or dishonorable.
Okay, right.
Got-
And so
Gotcha.
it would never enter her mind that this person that she enjoyed a bar brawl with, and they have been in fisticuffs together
Yeah.
back to back. It wouldn't enter her mind that this woman is also a dastardly assassin striking from the shadows.
Right.
Even though that's what Jason thinks, and that's fine. It's totally fine to be wrong too. It's just I'm excited either way. But it was fun. It gave me a moment to sort of engage with my negatives on the character sheet, and go, oh, I think she's a big trusting paladin type with, like she is intellectually curious about things, but she's, trusting until she has a good reason not to, and it wouldn't occur to her that you had gone, because I think she had gone. You guys were there by yourselves.
You went to go get the guards.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And even if she is an assassin for the Catholic Church, is that necessarily a bad thing?
Let's use the phrase they're using in the chat room, which is holy paladin.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Wait, for you or for me?
For me.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because Karat
Let's just say bringer of justice.
Yeah,
Karat
exactly.
is also devoutly religious
Yeah.
and believes very strongly.
I think that there's a really interesting moment coming up in this game when the three religions at play in this game all come together in one place.
It's like the end of Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Oh, yeah.
Where everyone's coming from different parts of the city.
Yeah,
and
because Azim is a devout Muslim.
Love that movie.
And he's had experience with Christians because he's from Spain.
Right.
But he's a Muslim. And he's a believer. Mm-hmm. That's going to be an interesting day.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been working on more of the. I worked on the inter-tribe politics section of the book, which is now almost 70 pages. And one of the things I developed in it was because you'd asked if there were Christian orcs.
Yeah.
Or was it Stork or you? One of you.
It was him.
I was definitely curious, because one of my original ideas was this Christian orc ranger, but when she was making a ranger, I was like, oh, okay, no, I'm going to do something. I'm going to do this like big orc paladin lady.
But in certain areas, Borderlands with the Caliphate of, what is it, Cordoba?
Yeah.
Which is what they called that part of Spain. There are Muslim orcs. And in another tribe, neighboring Burgundy, there's actually a couple of ordained orc priests.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm surprised there are priests who would have ordained them.
Their bishop got excommunicated for it, too.
Oh, well, okay.
Well, yeah, he did.
Yeah. I'm also picturing orc society a little bit of like, orcs arguing. I'm picturing like two orcs from two different tribes arguing, and a human comes up and goes, yeah, and then they both turn around and are like, you did not. Like, we're going to have our argument. Human, you need to stay out of it. That's
this is an A-B conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
I haven't totally developed the details of it, but the different orc tribes, their conflicts with each other, because some of them get along fine, some of them don't get along very well at all. The reason for that stems from the minutia of their religion and which things get interpreted.
Well, the minutia of religion has killed more people on this planet.
Sure.
Yes, in fact.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm torn about future too. I'm curious. I'm actually curious to people who, with regard to people who listen, both to the stream and to the actual play, what they find more enjoyable. Because I am.
That's a good question.
Because I'm so 100% down for either. Like, I don't need to have the little like my sneaky card.
No, but when you have that moment, when you have that scene, I have no problem with stepping outside while you have it either.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that either. I think it's like I have my preference. It doesn't bother me that that's what else is happening. It's just when I set up a game, I make sure somehow everybody knows each other and we are somehow functionally of a shared purpose. And then making characters together. I don't like everybody making a character separately and then coming together and figuring out how they fit.
I know for my part, I've done it both ways within the same game session.
Sure.
Where in one moment I would take a character aside for a second and have a quick chat. And then in another moment I would be like, okay, this is happening.
Yeah.
Well, and I do think I did ask Stu when I did that, because I think you were out of the room when I went, I think I'm going to try to do this.
Right.
And I wrote it down on a problem, because something on a problem. And when you came back in, I pointed and I was like, is this okay if I do this? But because obviously you shouldn't go into something like that if the GM's not
Down.
keen
Oh,
to
right.
be like, oh yeah, I'm a part of this.
Also, I should say a big exception for me is when a player wants to initiate something quietly, but it's going to be resolved publicly really quickly, like when Breland's playing a joke on Rogar.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And you slack me and you're like, okay, I want to set this up. I'm like, that's hilarious. And everyone's going to learn about it in a minute,
Yeah.
but it's better to learn about it in a minute instead of right now.
Right. That's actually totally why I do it that way.
Yeah.
Is just because this is going to happen in the next 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you this so you can be the one to let it play out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As the real Great Worm says, all orcs hate each other, but they hate you first.
More, for sure.
They hate you more, definitely.
Well, and I meant to bring it up. Relative Depod said this earlier, but it's just that sometimes there's the unintentional metagame, which is really not what I'm worried about. I'm just curious. It's the bigger Breland's itching powder in Roger's jockstrap.
Yeah.
That's what this
Which is about to happen.
I
by the
love
way.
that. I love that.
It's just,
Yeah.
it's kind of one of those where it's not even like I feel like I'm pulling one over on you guys.
Yeah.
It's not that I
Yeah.
feel like there's a big sassy secret.
I just want to say
Yeah.
about Desert of Despair, I really enjoy the game a lot. I don't think I've gotten a hold of Breland, really, as a character. Because the way I've been playing him is not the way I wrote him. And I'm going to try really hard to get him back where he needs to be in the next game.
Well,
So
if there's anything I can do to help facilitate that, let
I
me
just
know.
think the whole living intelligent undead thing really threw him for a loop.
I can imagine that actually being a challenging thing for anyone.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm going to try to get him back where he needs to be next time.
Heavy Metal Jess said, the aside scene was great and kind of made me, as a listener, feel like I had secret info. Made it a bit more like TV for actual play watching purposes.
Sweet.
Yeah, I mean, I could admit maybe in this format,
That's good info.
It might
my
be on
preference is not as applicable. I
I
could
know.
totally
That's
be
why
open to that
I'm
idea.
really interested, because I think, was it used to that used the example, or maybe it was Jason, about other media? And then right away I was thinking about you watch a horror movie and you're like, they're in the house.
Yeah.
Get out of the house.
Yeah.
And like no one in the movie screen can actually hear you screaming. They're in the fucking house, or look behind you, he's got an axe.
Yeah.
And there's something kind of fun about that as a player and
Yeah.
compelling. But I do think you
Yeah, and
miss.
One of the discussions that we had last night was, immersion versus tension, and the idea that immersion builds tension. But on the other hand, when I say, okay, I need you to roll a notice roll to see if you notice the 6 ninjas about to pounce on you.
Yeah.
Tension just went through the roof.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But it's
You
also-
know what's about to happen.
But it's also going to immediately resolve, like the joke
It's
you're playing
immediately
on
going
Rogar.
to resolve.
Yeah.
Something that's going to be more of a long play game,
Right.
you want to keep quiet. An example that I've been using a lot lately for this particular scenario is, so last night you met the hot blonde in the bar, took her home, and did the thing, and then the next morning
Played
you wake
checkers.
up. Yeah, you play checkers, totally. And the next morning you get up and you're like, so what are you going to do? Oh, I'm going to go across town to do the thing. Okay. So it occurs to you as you're walking down the stairs from her apartment that this kind of thing doesn't happen to you. Okay, this is like, whoa. Okay, so now how are you going to go across town? I'm going to drive my car. Cool, awesome. So as you're walking up to your car, I need you to roll a notice roll for me to see whether you see the bomb that got placed under your car last night
Yeah.
while she was distracting you. Now, if you make this roll, you're going to see the bomb, and that's fine. You can deal with that as you want. If you fail this roll, you will get in the car and turn the key.
Yeah. Now, the only thing about that specific example is I don't like a character death to come down to one roll.
Oh no, I agree.
So hopefully the bomb would just do a bunch of damage and
the
not
bomb
instantly kill
would
them.
not be an
Yeah.
insta death. I don't do insta death.
Yeah, that's
I don't
just-
do rocks fall
That-
and you're all dead.
And to me, like a character death, I always explain this to my Shadowrun players. I was like, guys, if you jump out of cover and run through a hail of gunfire because you think you're in the Matrix, I'm not pulling any punches.
Sure.
You made a terrible choice.
Right.
You bad
This
bad
is
plan.
a fantasy sci-fi world where you can fight a dragon with an Uzi, but if you jump out of cover and run through a hail of gunfire,
It's going to be a
Right.
bad day for you.
but the flip side of that, as your GM, I will not just cheese your death.
Right.
Right. You will not die a chump death falling down the stairs, for instance, of like,
Yeah.
you know,
Talking about death, player character death for just 1 second, because I don't want to distract from the topic too much. I think a character death should have meaning. That meaning might be sudden, and it might be a surprise. It might not be against the big bad. It might be in a bar fight, but it needs to have meaning. And it's the GM's responsibility to give it meaning.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. You want to
The Vampire 54, yeah. So Vampire 54 brought up earlier. So my group is playing Pathfinder right now, and we have gotten to level 13. And for the past few levels, we've been running into monsters that I have never faced before as a player. But what would my character know of this same monster? Like,
Right.
how would you approach that?
Oh, well, in Pathfinder, I think you have a dungeoneering skill.
You have a
So- or
dungeoneering skill. You have a nature.
yeah, it depends
a
on the
nature
type
skill.
of.
Depends
Yeah.
on what skills your character has.
So yeah, I mean, also you want to think like, if I'm playing a character who's never dealt with skeletons before, I know for a fact they have resistance to piercing damage. I'm still going to shoot an arrow at it if I'm an archer.
Sure.
Well,
You know,
absolutely.
like-
yeah.
I'm gonna try to run it through in
And
my rapier. Yeah.
there are times, and I've even done this in Desert, where I don't want a metagame, but I'm like, would my character have faced anything like this before? Or, and you will either say, yeah, totally, this is like that, or make a blobbity-blot check.
Yeah, and so I think also,
Yeah.
the answer to this question, the GM has to determine is, are skeletons really common in your
Yeah.
world? And everyone knows, yeah, you don't try to stab it because that's dumb, right?
Right.
Or you've never even heard of the dead walking the earth? Okay, this one, it's fucking terrifying.
Right. There probably ought to be some dice on the table about that fact
Right.
before we even move on.
Yeah.
So and it's also the setting that the GM is setting up.
Yes.
To say
Yeah.
like, oh
Absolutely.
well, you're fighting a snargleblat. No one's ever
Yeah.
heard of a snargleblat.
I wanna fight a snargleblat.
Yeah, me too. But in that case, I would say no. You don't even get a roll because no one's heard of it. It's
Right.
just spawned from some obscure plane of existence, and
Right.
sorry, you don't
As-
know anything about it.
As a player, one of the things that I'll do is if I have, as a player, I think I see the path to a thing. You'll often see me pick up my dice and roll them for no reason and then not say anything about it. That's me making an intelligence check or an education check to see, does my character know the same thing, have the same insight that I do?
Right.
Just to feel like you're not metagaming.
Just
it or something like
that's
that,
my
yeah.
way of making
Sure.
a decision about that, and it's totally and a lot of times I'm like, ooh, I failed that roll, and I won't do anything about it.
Right.
Yeah.
It is a good question, though, and that Vampire 54 was saying, as a player, I sometimes don't know what question to ask. So I think it's good to just, if you don't know, do that thing where it's like you're just going to roll your own wisdom or your own int to kind of
Yeah.
see, would I even think to ask that? Or
Sure.
And
I-
you are playing a game.
Yeah. Well, and
Just a
here's
reminder.
another thing that came up in the game that this is, I guess, related to immersion, but that not the same thing.
Right.
But is the magical stuff. So it has manifested itself as fire twice now.
And that's a big deal to your character.
Thank you. Which I think less so for the orcs.
Yeah, we've seen magic.
But my character is like, okay, I get that we want to talk about this. Is anybody going to talk about that giant firewall that was just in this room? Because it's like you have to kind of try to put your brain, your player brain, really more so in that character brain than maybe you're even used to being, because when you play fantasy games, there is magic.
Yeah,
Right.
and
But
that's the thing about the setting
Yeah.
of like the DM setting the tone of in BBT, Bloodblade and Tusk.
Yeah.
we don't know a lot about magic. Even the orcs from tribes where magic is relatively common just don't just fling around spells because they could explode.
Right.
Right. But in Eberron's setting, for instance, magic is everywhere. It's everyone's got something. You know, it's so common and
it's the
familiar.
way the world functions.
Yeah,
with all
it's just
the
super
tech
common and available. And so that's the sort of thing where in Bloodblade and Tusk, if you say, wow, where did this firewall come from? The GM's going to say, well, you're not familiar with that. In Eberron, I might say, oh, yeah, it's from this firewall charm, and it's super familiar. You've seen a dozen of these in your life.
Might be higher magic than anything you've ever seen, but you've heard of similar things. You've heard of similar things.
It fits a school of things. You know, like in the city of Sharn in Eberron, all the guards who have to go up and down all these lifts all day, they all are issued a feather charm because you could fall off the lift and really easily, or just get shoved. Right.
Otherwise, their insurance would go through the roof.
Right, and the feather charms.
Man, the OSHA claims on that one.
But in that setting, feather charms are cheap and easy to make by the dozens.
Right.
And it's a common resource that even not guards,
Well,
people just with a little bit of money.
Part of it too is the conceit of the game.
Yeah.
The conceit of D&D, the conceit of Pathfinder is everybody has a metric ton of magic. Everybody does. The idea is that at level 7 you're going to have this many gold pieces worth of magic stuff.
Yeah.
But in Bloodblade and Tusk, that's the equation is totally different.
Yeah.
And personally, I like that as a player, and I like the fact that my character is all about magic.
And he's got all the insights.
Because as you were saying, nobody knows anything about magic. Yeah,
exactly.
I do.
Exactly.
But I'm also not talking about it because
you don't want to get burned at a stake.
I don't want to get burned at the stake.
And to address Vampire 54's question, I think the way to address that is to say, GM, would my character know about this?
Yep.
Right? Or have a conversation about that in the moment to say, okay, the Snarglebot's attacking.
We engage with what's going on at many different levels. Sometimes we engage as a character in the first person. Sometimes we engage as a player of a game. What did I do?
I just said beers.
Oh, no.
That's all.
Yeah, relative D-Pod.
Oh,
Bought a cheers, drink.
Cheers. But we don't stay on one level. And when I say level, I'm not assigning value, a value judgment to them.
In modes.
In modes.
Yeah.
But we shift between them. Sometimes we engage with the game, and that's not wrong.
No.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Mailbag. We've talked about this for an
I was
hour.
going to say though, those of you who haven't listened to Bloodblade and Tusk should totally listen, and I'm not just because we play.
Listen to it because it's the best game on the
It
internet.
is a rocking game.
It is such a great setting, and it is. I don't know. It's
and don't feel bad if you feel like my character is the best character. You don't have to tell everyone. It's totally understandable.
Jason gets a little
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to move
Right.
over and make room for Jason's ego.
I would fill the room.
Even just listening to the podcast, we should maybe we'll put up a survey, go into the Bloodblade and Tusk actual play, and we'll have a little survey up.
Sure.
So if you even have thoughts about, like, if you were listening to an actual play or in real life, whether you think characters should still be secret off.
Right. And there's things in between what we're talking about as well. I mean, you could have something where, okay, at character creation, some players have some secrets, but when you start doing stuff that has to do with that secret, it's out on the table. So that people may not necessarily know it at character creation, but within a session or two.
Well, I would say for Stork and I, we're not even super clear on what's happening with the chieftain line of succession right now.
Right.
Well,
I know you're the second brood.
Right.
Right.
Right. But actually in character and out of character, there's a bunch of stuff that's either undecided or Stu hasn't told us, and that's that's exciting too. That there's this NPC out there that we don't, at least I don't really have a clear idea of how that's going to play out, and it's exciting. Well, I don't think they want me dead. They wouldn't have sent me off.
Yeah.
Well, Gractol probably wants me dead. Yeah.
Gractol might.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gractol wants you dead.
Gractol
Yeah.
might have pulled that stuff then, so maybe there's
Maybe.
Maybe Gractol,
Yep.
before you guys came along,
Yep.
maybe
Right.
Gractol was the shoe-in.
Yep.
Yep. But we're just better in every way.
Right. All right. Cute story
Cool.
from my gaming youth. What? Oh. Cute story from my gaming youth from Axel. Yo, Happy Jack's Posse. You're low on emails, and I'm sure you need a few for the comic relief section. So here's a quick little throwback to my teenage years. In small town Germany at the time, we were playing Das Schwarze Auge, the first ever German RPG. What's an Auge?
don't know.
Is that the
Aga.
age?
The Dark Age? The Black Age?
I think
Black
that's the
Age?
Black Age.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna look it up, but that sounds very plausible.
Think original D&D simplicity with only a few stats, attack and weapons data, and a handful of spells. We all played it because it was A, available in regular bookstores, and B, accessible due to its German language. We were probably 12 or 13 at the time, and our English was not quite adequate yet for long rule books. And especially not High Gygaxian in D&D books, because that's its
Nobody
own flavor of
really
English.
speaks High Gygaxian.
No.
And interestingly, Shadowrun, I think, was one of the first big titles that was translated to German.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Or at least German was the first language that Shadowrun went to, and
Oh,
it was
yeah.
early '90s. And
It's actually I.
The Black Eye?
oh, the Black
Eye.
okay.
Interesting.
Those
Das Schwarze
Schwarze
Auge.
Das
Yeah,
Schwarze Eye.
it's probably
Okay.
related to augur,
Oh, yeah.
augury.
Yeah, okay, I'll buy it.
Latin.
As is often the case with small communities, we had these unwritten rules that everyone kind of abided by for whatever reason. You had one character, your character. The idea to specifically create characters for a particular game did not occur to us, nor the idea of having more than one character. The task was to grow and develop your one character and keep it from dying. So you took your one character from game to various GMs running games. This led to some interesting games with all these 6th level characters being totally different in real power levels depending on the games they had previously been in. You kept your character sheets, and it was absolutely on our system that you would not cheat or change any of your stats. We did that too.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
However, the system also offered a few game books where you could take your character on a choose-your-own adventure-style journey, a so-called solo adventure, and the game book where you could basically gain 5 levels of drinking by drinking a potion is one that you played with all of your PCs. Totally legal, quote-unquote, as it was within the system, and we did not think of that being douchey at all.
Well, I guess if everyone has the same information,
Sure.
then that's...
If they all have the same opportunity,
yeah.
why not?
I
Yep.
ran myself through the solo adventure 5 times.
Yep.
I'm 25th level.
Yep.
Boom.
Good job, everybody.
We're
Drank
all
the shit out of that potion.
right.
Yeah.
That's totally fair.
And of course, we got some of the rules totally wrong because the person that initially read them and explained them to everyone else had gotten them wrong. Major discussions ensued when someone figured out how things were actually supposed to work.
Classic.
Since,
That's never happened.
right. Since you'd spent so much time getting used to the bugged rules.
Oh, yeah.
Buggered rules. Why am I writing this down? To remind all of us that warm and fuzzy game feeling that is so hard to get back when you get older and know more about RPGs. You try different settings, rules, and players, spend large amounts of money, and sometimes all you do is chase the feeling you had when those first few gaming sessions. I highly recommend to do a one-shot in the most archaic RPG you can find from time to time to remind you of the old times and the fact that you don't need sophisticated rules and complex settings to have fun. Have a drink, remember the good old days, and game on.
Cheers.
Axel.
First off, drink. Second off, I so totally agree with his sentiment here. A couple of years ago, I made a comment on the cast that my first edition AD&D books had disappeared. I know where they went, but that's a different story. But if I could put my hands on another set of them, I would run a first edition AD&D game at a con.
What are you missing?
At the time, I was missing all of them.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And a listener sent me the entire set.
Right.
And when I got them. I said, well, this is awesome, cool. I'll send, just make sure I have your address so I can send them back to you. He said, no, they're yours.
Oh, that's really
And I was
kind.
like, that's
fantastic.
But when I sat down and I started reading through the books, because I'm like, okay, I said I would do this, I'm going to run a game. And I started reading the books again. I was like, why did we play this game?
Yeah.
Actually,
Why did we play this game? And then I ran the play test. And I was like, oh, this is why we played this game.
Right.
Because it's just fun.
Right. Well, so you guys saw it when you came in. I got there's a it was a Kickstarter. It's called Dungeonesque, and it's a 5th edition adaptation.
Yeah. I remember.
They came out with 2 versions. They came out with the sort of basic D&D, or what was the red box called?
Basic D&D.
Was it basic?
I think it was called Basic.
Yeah, it's
don't
basic D&D.
They have a red box version, which is a large
BX.
red box, and it looks very similar to the original red box version. But the rules inside are 5th edition.
Oh, cool.
And then the one I got is the basic original white box. It comes with 4 small books. One's about characters, the other about worlds and adventures or whatever. And it's got all the 5th edition rules in it for the most part. They're presented differently, as they would have been presented in the white box edition.
It's probably stripped down a little bit.
It is.
too.
It is stripped down. Yeah. There's no. Well, especially now. I don't know about the other edition, but the white box version, there aren't any feats or anything like that.
Yeah, that's fine. Feats are an optional thing in 5th
Right.
edition anyway.
Yeah.
So.
But that's what I'm going to be running at the con. On
That's
the
so cool.
Yeah,
the
that's
kids,
awesome.
the kids gaming section.
You're doing it for kids, and I want to let all the kids play, but I also want to play.
Right.
I should say too, I got a good friend of mine is running 1st edition AD&D right now. It's Friday nights in Burbank, or every other Friday or something, at this shop called Geeky Teas and Games, and you can go there and like get a board game or play your RPG or whatever. And
cool.
so he is teaching people about 1st edition AD&D
Sweet.
tonight. He invited me. I was like, I'm going on the podcast, but
Oh,
it's,
nice.
yeah. So you can go check that out too. If
It's-
it's okay to plug my friend's
It
shop.
just so
but,
totally reminded me.
What's it
of-
called? Geeky Teas.
Geeky Teas, it's TEAS because she also mixes her own tea,
Okay.
like blend does tea
Sweet.
blends and stuff.
Awesome.
So Geeky Teas and Games in Burbank. It's
Okay.
it's a lot of fun.
That's very
Sweet.
cool.
It's so much fun.
I think I've said that before too, but not just the old school games, but I think you chase that dragon in a lot of your
of course,
gaming.
absolutely.
That
You do.
those highs are just really
it's so
good.
rewarding.
It's
when
those
everything-
moments of magic
Yeah.
that happen.
when a plan comes together.
Yes.
Or when just those moments of brilliance.
Yeah.
You
Or
know?
when a plan completely falls apart.
Right.
And-
Savage Talker of the Hill People, he's asking about the white and the red boxes. They're
Yeah.
separate editions.
Yeah.
So the white box is its own 5th edition version of the original D&D, and the red box is the 5th edition
Starter
reimagining
kit, yeah.
of the red
Of the
box
basic set.
edition.
Yeah.
They're complete games.
And originally there was, says the girl who didn't know at the time but has learned, there was a white box, a blue box, and a red box.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I know we've debated before, so we don't need to do it again. Like which one was what and what was BX and
the
what
order
was,
of them is white, red, blue, black,
Okay.
and then AD&D.
Then chartreuse.
Yes. Thank you.
But I made that box myself.
yeah, but that was a nice story by who said
Yes,
that
it
in
was.
Yeah.
That's a great
Axel.
story.
Axel,
I am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
is-
I
it is the
also
warm and fuzzy.
I bought a beginner's set
True.
for, and I may regret this, a beginner's set for Warhammer 40K.
Oh no,
It's a small one. It's
we're
like
going to lose you, aren't we?
it's about
No, but his children are not going to be able to go to college.
I stopped showering 3
overrated.
weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Preparing for
yeah.
the
To
first
prepare,
game.
yeah, that's good. That's the
Do you-
primary
do
defense.
do you have blue jeans with a belt and suspenders?
Of course.
Okay.
But I got this one. It's a little box, and it came with 6 Marines and like 8 undead things. 3 of them are Marines, and like the rest of them are like shambly things. And I just primered them and all that. And Zachary, I got it so Zachary could play it. And I just put them all together because they just snap together. You barely need to
Oh,
glue them.
nice. Yeah.
And I put them all together, and he says, "Daddy, do I have to paint these?" I'm like, "I'll paint them. Don't worry about that." And they're different plastic colors, so you
Yeah.
can immediately tell what's what. We played through a couple of scenarios.
Have you ever
It's
played
fun.
Space Hulk?
No.
Yeah, it's Warhammer 40K. The futuristic setting where
Right.
you're the
Yep.
Space Marines with machine guns, but you're fighting these gene stealer aliens. And it's a pretty well designed
Totally awesome.
little board game. It's only 2 players, but you can Yeah, it's pretty in depth.
Well, I've been watching YouTube videos where this guy is kind of like going through, and he's going through segments of the Warhammer 40K lore.
Oh, cool.
And the one I just got to, which is an hour and 20 minutes long, is about the Emperor of
He's crazy
mankind.
pants.
The lore of the Warhammer universe is just freaking amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like, if they
too.
could get an HBO series, I think that'd be really interesting. You can't cram it into a movie.
Wow.
That's
No.
physically impossible.
No.
But I think it would be. There's a way to tell the story that would be really engaging.
Well, you can tell any story you want. It's everything will be incredibly over the top.
Everything has happened.
Armor's
Anything
this
is possible.
big.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I have now met the only other person on the planet who says crazy pants.
Oh.
Because I heard you say it on Sunday, and I was telling.
I've used that
Tim, I
phrase
was
for
like,
years.
Maybe I got
Oh,
it from
'cause
you.
I-
I don't know.
No, I'm like, he said crazy
Yeah.
pants. I said crazy pants.
I think I've said it for
No,
a while, but I might have got it from you or you. I don't know.
I've used that phrase for years and years and years.
Oh, well.
I know where I got it from. I got it from my ex-wife.
Oh boy. Okay.
No, I have
Yeah.
not started inserting heresy into my daily language.
Heresy.
But you should.
I
As you
will.
That's
do.
how
The next
I feel.
time you have a
Yeah.
complaining customer,
Yeah.
Right.
Heretic.
Heresy.
That's how I feel about programmers who use spaces instead of tabs.
Oh my lord,
That fight is real.
savage stalker.
we're gonna throw down in a second.
Use
book,
spaces?
the book I have says I'm supposed to use spaces.
You're
No.
supposed to use spaces.
No.
You're supposed to use spaces.
No, that's stupid.
That's what the book I had said.
That's wrong. And I'll explain why later.
Okay.
Wait,
Curly braces on the same line or on the next line.
True
We'll get to
or
that
false,
later.
Jason. Space Hulk. When you just want to play a game, oh, I lost it. When you just want to play a game that determines your anal circumference, but aren't committed to playing Fatal.
Yeah, Space Hulk.
Really?
Space Hulk takes like an hour and a half to set up for a half hour of play. That seems fairly accurate.
About
to
right,
me.
I think.
Yeah.
All right.
I haven't-
It's actually pretty quick to play the game, but setting up the board and the scenario you're going to play and set up your Marines and then literally your Marines go and the aliens go and yeah.
I think
Very
I think we
interesting.
set it up like 5 or 6 times and never actually got to play.
Yeah, I've
Right.
got to play through the opening scenario a couple times, like the beginner scenario to learn how to play. I played it a couple times, and it was really fun while we were playing it for that moment. But there
Right.
was so much setup, and we hadn't even painted everything. We just went with the plastic figures, and
Right.
it was a very fun gameplay.
You just summed up the sum total of my life.
Oh, really?
It was all fun doing this thing, but it took so much time to do all the other
Yeah.
things.
That's the neat thing. I mean, once I cut the pieces out, now I trimmed them nice
Yeah.
because I was going to paint them.
Wow.
But they all just snapped together.
Yeah.
I mean, I did put
Oh.
a drop of glue on them in case they ever wiggled
Oh, yeah.
apart.
Sure.
But they didn't seem like they were going to.
Yeah.
And then I glued them to the bases, obviously, and then I primered them and washed them now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, mine are all primered because I had this dream of painting them all, and
Right.
then I never did it.
Right.
So,
Funny.
well, I just did the wash, and they actually their instructions on how to paint them now are spray paint the base color, throw on a wash. Here's some little things you can highlight. Dry brush some dust on them. You're done. So it's not like
Well, because for play, you're looking at your 3 feet,
yeah, exactly.
the 3 foot distance.
yeah.
Right.
And you're going to be handling them a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
And yeah.
The Real Great Worm says there is a Space Hulk is on PS4.
Yeah, it's also on like iPad tablet. It's
Yeah.
way more playable. You don't have to do all the setup,
That's
and it's a
what
lot
Great
of
Worm-
fun.
yeah.
I
Cool.
concur, Great Worm. You are greatly
Cool.
correct.
Oh, that sounds interesting. To me.
Yeah.
All right.
yeah.
Cool.
I have it on PS4. It's very playable.
Jason, do you want to do some L5
L-
hour?
L5R
L5R
Rose
Rose?
from Eric and Nudge.
Which one's Jason?
You.
Oh, me. Okay.
You. In this
L5R
room, I'm not
Rose
Jason.
from Eric in New Jersey. Dear Stu the Baker and the Douche Cakes. Greetings from the fabled land of New Jersey. I'm not convinced that it's a real place. I've never been.
I've seen it.
No real place could be that awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the Garden State.
I hope all is going well with you. I have a bit of a problem. I run a monthly L5R game. I want a game that is a conflict of the codes of Bushido. I made up a city with characters having conflict with one another and a place for the characters to be in all of this. I understand the concept, at least I think I do. This is going to be all on you guys because I don't know anything about F5R, and he's describing a game that is my nightmare.
Okay.
With all due, that's
True.
great. That's great.
That's not your jam.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's a bad game. I'm just saying that's my nightmare. Instead, insert Lewis Black exasperated yelling, "I am running a fucking D&D game!" And apparently doesn't want to. Sorry, I shouldn't have actually yelled.
That's fine.
I've been running games for over 35 years. Amen. I know how to adapt to different genres and have done that with a large variety of systems. But no, something about L5R makes me run it as D&D with fucking samurai. Mind you, I like D&D, so this is in no way bashing on D&D, it's just the style I keep falling into. The players are no help. I had horrid undead at one point, and they all went, "Yay, zombies to fight!" However, I am the GM. I set the tempo and the atmosphere. I consider this my responsibility. Right now, the players are deputies to an Emerald Magistrate who is very old, thus he gives the players a very long leash. He is dying, none of the players know that yet, so eventually the senior figure will be out of the picture so that the players can have more autonomy.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I agree. One of them should become the magistrate. I don't know what a magistrate is, but that's actually, most of the players think that he has some sort of agenda anyway because he is a scorpion. Mm-hmm. The city is shared by the scorpion, the unicorn, and the lion. This sounds fucking awesome. That's my addition. I don't know what any of that means. The city is shared by the scorpion, the unicorn, and the lion near some mines that all three clans want to control. I don't know what the hell I'm doing to keep turning it into D&D. I've already used the adventure in the book, which went probably the best out of everything. I need help. I know I can do this. I've done other genres before. I just can't seem to break through some weird mental barrier here. Any suggestions? Please help. Thanks, and keep drinking. Eric from New Jersey.
Tea.
Oh.
Tea.
You need tea.
Really?
Yes, they need to go. One of the things I did when I ran the L5R game to sort of set the tone when they go in and they go into the main city, Murasabishishi Toshi, which was the closest city to where they were, and there is a tea house, and they go to the tea house and they have tea. D&D adventurers don't go into a tea house and have tea ever.
Mm-hmm. Were bathhouses big in feudal Japan?
Well, it's not really feudal Japan.
Oh, really?
It's a mythological place called Rokugan, which is very similar to feudal Japan.
Okay. Because bathhouses aren't big in D&D usually either, so that's another thing.
You know what? There was. They did on the road. They went to a place where there was a bathhouse, and they spent the night
your
there.
own D&D games.
Right.
If there aren't bathhouses, you've been playing your own D&D games.
But I mean, you have to look at the cultural things of the game and make those have significance.
Yeah.
As the GM, you need to say, "Oh, there's a tea house nearby. Do you want to go and stuff?"
There's a tea house.
Can I remind you of
There's a
something
bathhouse.
that you did that I think also just sort of reminded is you had posted on the wall?
The 7 tenets of Bushido.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's
Also,
Compassion, courage, courtesy.
Take the game out of the fight.
Yeah.
Put them in court where fighting bad, and set the zombies aside.
Right. The other thing. Thing. I'll get back to the zombies in a second.
Yeah.
They have a senior, and that's one of the things about. I always talked about how I kept them under the thumb of their daimyo for too long. But in hindsight, having them be under the daimyo's thumb for several sessions kind of set the tone for what they were expected to do and how they were expected to behave.
You mean like the hierarchy of respect and all that kind of
Yeah.
thing?
Right.
That's interesting.
And then I gave the daimyo a flaw. Because basically he was in conflict with his older brother who was sort of his daimyo.
Yeah.
Right? And he was refusing to do something for people who might want to listen to the game. Because it turns out those actual plays, they got a long tail.
Oh yeah, people are still listening.
There's
to them.
L5R episodes, and the one that you ran, the Deadlands game, that are getting up in the 11 and 12,000 downloads.
Sweet.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Whoa.
Yeah, no kidding. Right. I was shocked.
Holy crap.
I went and looked at older stuff. I'm like,
You mean the Sturmgeist game?
yeah, it was
Yeah,
Sturmgeist.
Pulp.
Yeah,
I think
the
it was
Pulp game.
Sturmgeist. Yeah, that
I
one.
wish I had all of those recorded.
I think the Savage Worlds Ghostbusters LA game I ran is like at 15,000 downloads.
That is
That's
such a
awesome.
spectacular
That's
game,
super
though.
cool.
But anyway, I gave him a flaw. Basically, he was refusing to do something his brother had ordered him to do, and that when your senior or your superior is not following the tenets of Bushido, that immediately is going to put you in conflict you want to be honorable,
Right.
but you also have to honor your daimyo.
Yeah.
Right.
In the game, is there a way to call out your senior for doing something improper?
I don't remember.
I don't think there
I
is. At the same time, though, you're in conflict, but you're in conflict that your sword is not the answer to.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah, well, you're not going to go and kill your daimyo
Well, and I
because he
think-
won't do
Yeah.
what his brother wants.
Right.
You might take his side on it, but you're also like,
I think sometimes the trick too in games like that are when there is not necessarily a mechanic in the game that forces that sort of character conflict or character choice or repercussions. So there is a burden on the GM to kind of push back.
oh yeah,
Because the information is there and the fluff is there to support the type of game you want to run, but there isn't necessarily a mechanical aspect to it where you're rolling you're going to lose humanity because XYZ.
right. Well, you can
lose-
you can lose honor,
Yeah.
and honor has game effects. It really does.
Yeah.
And I mean but that's, you don't want to rely on that.
Yeah.
That's for the way I look at it. That honor is for when your character has a conflict where there's two wrong things to do and no right thing to do. And he's going to have to do one of them.
Yeah.
And he's going to take a small honor hit for it.
Yeah.
That's kind of the
Yeah,
The
but
thing-
maybe focusing on honor could help Eric get his game back
it could.
on track.
Yes, it could.
Well, and like
But it almost sounds like it's as much him as it is the players.
I think that's what he's saying too, and that's why I was wondering if having the tenants there, heavy metal, just kind of reinforced what you were saying, Stu, about music and food, and reminded. I remember
oh,
that
yeah.
You
about
know-
the Moorish game she ran.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Maybe
Yeah.
serve tea at the table
Yeah.
too.
We
That's
had
what-
that,
yeah.
that
Yeah,
could
we
be
had-
fun
we
just
had
to
sake
get
bombs.
moving. Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
quite a few sake bombs.
not exactly the same thing, but
No.
you know,
Kimmy gets giggly on sake bombs,
Did
by
you?
the way.
who doesn't?
Do I remember you pointing to stuff, like references to you pointing to things when characters were doing
that's
things?
right.
Yes.
Frickin' buy a freaking fan.
Buy a fan.
Buy a fan
yeah.
and have that shit in your hand all
Yeah.
the time, and
Yep.
and sit and hold it and just so that people can't see.
Oh yeah,
your
there
face.
was this Stu being coquettish with the
Yeah.
fan, flirting with Dave's.
Yeah, I think you
But-
scarred Dave for
Yeah.
life
I
with
did.
that, by the
I
way.
did, yeah. And I also would use the fan and because I get a decent one. Don't get like the the little paper and
Little chintzy plastic one.
spend $7 and get one that's made out of material and you can
Bamboo
open it up,
with nice paper.
and then you close it and then you point to the tenets of Bushido and
Yeah.
you say you are not being sincere.
Yes, that's what I remember you.
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Where
used to
it's
do
just
that all
like,
the time.
You know,
know what you're doing and how you're playing, and
Right.
if you intend to do that, right on.
Like-
but
Also, the L5R book is one of the few role-playing game books, like large ones, that I read from front to back.
yeah, it's awesome.
Clearly, I
I'd be
haven't
more
done
impressed if you read it back to front.
that's the way it was written. No.
or sideways.
Right, but because it gives you, it starts with the creation myth of the world. That's what the book starts with.
cool.
Because it's such a different type of fantasy game, you really have to get your mind around it. So if you didn't read that stuff, go back and read that.
And they don't have wizards and stuff, right?
They have
They do.
Shugenja.
Shugenja.
Yeah.
Oh,
They're
really?
priests.
Okay.
They're priests who can control the kami,
Right,
which
but-
are the spirits.
But the
Yeah.
religion of Rokugan is animistic.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's not like they have gods per se. They have spirits.
Sure.
Yeah.
Kinda
And
like Shinto.
I was thinking, given that we have this room now, if you were to do an L5R game again, I was thinking I would colograph on rice paper the 7 tenets of Bushido.
That'd be fun.
Oh, and it'd be on camera.
Yep.
Yeah. Just
Put it right there.
well, I was going to put each one on a separate banner.
Oh, there you go.
So that there's
like
number
the,
one-
like
Yeah.
the little.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
exactly.
Oh, that'd be
exactly.
so awesome. That'd be
So,
so awesome.
just an idea if you ever
Yes.
decide you want to run L5R again.
Well, we'll see. I don't know if the people that bought L5R, they make the chicken entrail dice, and I hope they don't use them for that. FFG bought the L5R.
they did.
Oh.
Yeah, but they haven't put out a new version of
Just
it
the
yet.
card game.
Yeah, just the card game.
Everyone says the card game is fantastic.
Haven't played it,
what I've
so.
heard.
Yeah, I mean, the Star Wars card game they put out is really fun to play, but again, it takes an hour and a half to set up all the pieces, and this card goes here, and this card has to go sideways, so make sure you put that in the right place, and then, and then playing the game, super fun. FFG, please stop adding so many things.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. Well, they've come out with
The fiddly bits. That's what.
They've come out with they're either announced they're coming. I think they've announced they're going to come out with a sort of they're not generic, but they're coming out with their own line of role playing games, unlicensed, that use a similar die mechanic to the Star Wars.
Oh, okay.
the narrative dice they really like, and it's kind of their shtick.
Sure. Well, yeah, because you have to buy their dice if you want to play their game.
Yes,
Yeah.
and there are many things I like about the FFG Star Wars games. I am running as an FFG Star Wars campaign right now, and we're having a lot of fun with it. There are things about the way the game plays that are a little bit of a struggle for me.
And character creation is so complex.
Yeah. Have you
It
looked
does
at
not
the,
need to be.
the PBTA Star Wars
Oh yeah,
that Andrew Medeiros did?
Yeah.
That's fucking brilliant, in my opinion. It's so streamlined. It captures the essence and the feel of Star Wars, and yeah.
well, I could do Star Wars in any one of half a dozen different game systems if I wanted to.
Absolutely.
But we specifically wanted to play this game.
Right.
Yeah.
And because you want to try out the fiddly dice and see
Yeah,
what
Try out
it's
the
like.
fiddly narrative dice and
Yeah.
see how they work.
Yeah, I tried it.
There's a
Yeah.
they have a Conan game. I think
FFG does?
so.
All right. Thank you, Eric from New Jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fixing boring combat from
Yeah.
Zach in Chicago.
Do you want this one, or do you want me to?
Go for it.
Okay.
My kind of town,
My kind-
Chicago is.
Hey, do and the stoosh bags.
Douchebag.
That sounds like a Saturday morning
Is that a
cartoon.
new one? That sounds.
That's a new one. That is a new one.
Yeah.
Scrappy Doo and the stoosh bags.
Yeah, it sounds like something awful
Ruh-roh.
that you found a bag of. Like, oh no.
Someone left a bag of stoosh on my porch.
Yeah, exactly.
One more thing before we get to the letter. It sounds like Sergito is putting together on the forum. He wants to run a play-by-post L5R court game.
Oh, awesome.
He runs
Yeah.
a lot of L5R.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he does.
Awesome.
He runs a lot of L5R.
Yep, it's one of his
Sweet.
systems.
Yeah. Cool.
So check out the forums.
Yeah, so look for that.
Yeah.
And if you actually get players and are going to run it, let me know. I can set you up a little slice of heaven there on the forum.
Ooh,
Sweet.
fancy. Official.
Yeah.
Yeah, official crap. I recently finished playing in a Savage Worlds game set in a 1930s pulp setting. I found part of the cinematic fight really boring, and I'd like to hear your recommendations for how to fix it.
For the record, it's a climactic fight. Just because that might make a point.
Oh, a part of the
Yeah.
climactic fight, really boring. Sorry.
It was a climatic fight? Like thunder was over here?
Yes, I don't know. Oh, it's just a dumb ammunal. The fight was in a treasure room in an underground tomb in a desert. Well, that sounds familiar. We had just found a
hate
magic
snakes.
helmet. Did you find a spear too? Because I
Spear
want a
and
spear to
magic
go with my
helmet.
magic helmet.
Yeah, seriously.
When some Nazi soldiers ambushed us from the entrance and started shooting. The character interacting with the helmet had some interesting choices as he discovered what it could do, but once my character was in a good tactical position, I just rolled my shooting every turn.
Yeah.
When turn came around to me, I shoot at the Nazi that's most threatening. Roll my shooting dice. When it came back around, I shoot at the Nazi that's most threatening. Roll my shooting dice. Repeat for around 3 more turns, and in total of at least 30 minutes of real time.
That was
30
only
minutes?
30 minutes?
30
And
minutes?
Savage Worlds.
Savage Worlds tends to go a little faster unless you have monsters with or bad guys with very high target numbers. And then it gets frustratingly long.
I eventually got so bored that I tried jumping down the entrance stairs to land a kick on an approaching Nazi soldier. But I had forgotten that I had no points in fighting.
Oh, well, that's...
So
yeah.
I would have been rolling at a large disadvantage.
1d4 minus 2.
1d4 minus 2. Another player spent their adventure card with special rules to give me points in fighting for the encounter so I could attempt the move.
That's a nice card.
That's a nice card. But without that extra rules exception, I wouldn't have had a chance to try anything different. The fight just felt boring because the only thing that made sense for my character was to keep shooting every turn, and Savage Worlds didn't provide much depth to that. We'll come back to that. The choice was always the same. How can I, as a player, and anyone as a GM, avoid this situation in the future? Should I broaden out my character to have more than one combat focus? What can the GM do to make each round interesting? Should we play something with more complexity to the mechanics? No. E.g., tracking more resources? No.
No.
In retrospect,
No,
I think
if 30 minutes is boring you for a combat, you don't want a resource tracker.
Yeah, don't add complexity.
You don't want the fiddliness that is other things.
Because the way I look at it, 30 minutes ain't so bad.
30 minutes ain't so
for
bad.
a combat.
In retrospect, I think I could have done more on my own to mix it up, such as using the treasure in the room to my advantage, but the GM didn't mention it once we entered combat, so I think I completely forgot we weren't in an empty room. Thanks for all the help and all the laughs over the years, Zach in Chicago. P.S. Obligatory P.S. PPS. Stu, you should try watching Star Wars Rebels. Google Play has them sorted into sensible seasons. They're pretty pricey, but some of the episodes are very worth it, especially in the later seasons.
I also enjoy Star Wars Rebels, so excellent.
I've watched. I don't have whatever channel it's on, so I was buying it on Amazon.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
As
I
it
have
came
it
out.
on Amazon as well.
But then it's like, okay, here's a season that's like one episode.
Right, and it's $20.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah, they kind of messed that up. But the most recent season was done very sensibly. Like,
Okay.
they figured it, they learned from that mistake, so...
I like Rebels. I don't like it as well as I like Clone Wars.
Clone Wars is fucking
Clone Wars is just-
epically good.
Yeah.
That's...
But to talk about Zach's problem
yeah.
here. Okay, problem the first was your GM,
Yeah.
who
Primary responsibility.
Sorry. I'm muting the wrong people. Okay.
who did not do his job in illustrating what was going on and making what was going on more interesting.
Right, or having more variation within the room.
Right. Part of the problem lies with the players who did not take the opportunity to make their own lives interesting. You had the right idea to shake things up and jump down the stairs and try to land, mix it up with some Nazis.
Yeah, I mean, if you can punch a Nazi, you should definitely
You
take
should
that
always punch a
opportunity.
Nazi
Yeah.
at every opportunity.
Yeah.
What was not, I'm going to just say that what was not at fault was the game system. Because Savage Worlds, by design, the rules deal with the impact of a thing on the game. Okay? They do not deal with what it looks like, what it feels like.
Yeah.
The responsibility for that is entirely on the players.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, use all of them. Use all of the rules. When, for example, somebody walks into a room and opens fire with a gun, my character's first response is going to be, I take cover.
Right.
Yeah. As
Because
any reasonable
I
person
want because
should.
as that is what a reasonable person will do in that situation. Interestingly enough, I ran a 1930s pulp game in Savage Worlds
With Nazis.
with Nazis. There were loads and loads of Nazis, and
Nazis are history's greatest punching bag.
I know.
only have one
And
player.
rightfully so.
Yes.
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 Only have one of the
Right.
players
Yes.
in the room right now. But did we ever have this problem where we had a fight that was boring because there was nothing going on in it? That was just over and over and over the same cycle of events.
No, there are definitely times, even in Savage Worlds, where if the dice go a certain way, or you can't ever tell when you're going to one shot the big bad,
Sure.
or when you're going to almost have a TPK versus
Yeah,
a bunch
that's
of...
my complaint about Savage Worlds.
Yeah.
In general, I
Yeah.
like the idea
Yeah.
of it, but it's the dice system feels clunky.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but
I don't know. I love the dice, but it's just like if you're gonna miss your rolls and you're not gonna explode dice, and you're just, But I do agree with you that a lot of that is the players coloring what they're doing, and not just like,
well,
I shoot my gun. I
And
shoot my
the
gun.
other thing is that, I mean, especially if a character has a high skill level and you can afford to do this, you can take 2 actions at a -2 penalty.
Yeah.
So you can say, oh, okay, I'm going to knock over this box of crates, and then I'm going to shoot the guy,
Right.
so that he can't get close to me,
Right.
because I don't have melee.
One of our characters in that game, whose player shall remain nameless, Gina, was playing a gun mall. It's 1930s, and she was carrying a Thompson submachine gun in her purse. We don't ask how.
yeah, it's a big purse.
It doesn't matter how.
It was a purse of holding.
I didn't have it
Yeah.
in my purse. I had a different gun in my purse.
Oh,
Oh, you had it in the violin case.
Yeah, I specifically said I had
yeah.
this, some sort of...
Oh, that's
yeah.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. But
But yeah, there's
When-
some suspension
when
of
the
disbelief.
Nazis, when they had the gunfight with the Nazis, the one I'm thinking about was in some ruins. The immediate thing that Gina said to me was suppressing fire.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a specific rule for that.
There's
too.
a specific rule for that. So the point of that is understand the rules of what your character can do. Understand the things that the edges and the hindrances and the abilities. If you're carrying an automatic weapon, you have suppressing fire.
Yep.
You have auto fire. Make use of those things.
Now, I will say there's a flip side to this conversation where I was running a D&D game, and they had made their way in to fight the big boss in this underground lair, right? And there was all this stuff. There was a big magic circle in the middle, and piles of bodies, and a balcony, and like a waterfall, and a fire, and there was all this interesting stuff that you could do. And I did keep mentioning okay, there's a balcony
you make
here,
use
there's-
of those
right?
things.
But the players got into position,
Yes.
and every single one of them, I shoot my bow. I cast magic missile. I do this. Because somehow they had
Yeah.
locked down the guy. I don't remember exactly what happened, but they put themselves in a situation where they didn't need to move around, and they just sort of did
That
it.
happens
right?
with a lot of
It
combat.
does.
Right, and
So
get-
when you get into a position, it's like, okay, especially if you're a ranged weapon,
Right.
I'm in a good position for a ranged weapon.
Sure.
Yeah.
Why would I move?
I get the
Right.
logic
Yeah.
of that, but there was so
No, I
much
know
they
what you
could
mean.
have taken advantage of
Like they
it.
don't-
So that's
Yes.
the flip side of this argument of
Right.
the players and the GM need to sort of have that
Yeah,
give and
it's
take.
like if you are watching a pulpy adventure or a film noir, is the person really just gonna everybody's gonna go vroom like a magnet towards the guy, or are they gonna take cover behind the couch and raise up
Yeah.
every once in a while and
Now,
shoot? or
another way you could shake this particular situation up: hand grenades.
sure,
But they'd have to be there. Either
Right.
if the players didn't
Yeah.
bring any,
Nazis
then
carry hand grenades.
sure. Yes.
Yeah, they had a little.
Potato mashers.
yeah.
But the point though is the same. The surroundings, the thing, the character's abilities. Understand what you have to work with, and you make use of all of it, and that's on everybody.
Well, I mean, you and many of us have said many times that role playing kind of grinds to a halt once a combat map comes
Yeah.
out,
It
and I
can.
think players will start to look at the map itself, and they start thinking of it in terms of tactics.
Yeah, a
Like,
board game.
Right. Where is the place to be? What's the smart thing to do? And that's what they do because they want to win the combat. Obviously, they don't want their characters
Yeah.
to get killed. So they're
Unless
gonna-
you have Gina as in your game, who has both curious and naive hindrances.
or Stork, who's like,
Yeah.
I'm going to go down this hallway
Yeah.
on my own.
On my own. Hey, I got new abilities.
Lokio said in the chat room that the solution is that you have to make being awesome mechanically, and that is to your point, Jason, earlier, where I have a lot of fun playing Savage Worlds, but there are systems that don't necessarily exploit those.
Yeah.
Make you be creatively, or DCC is one of those where it's like you get the extra little stunt die and you get to do a flourish. to your
Or I'll
move,
tell you,
or-
like being awesome in D&D is rarely that satisfying. You could have a plus 10 to
Right.
your roll, which is fucking huge and unbeatable, right?
Yep.
You know what? You roll a 2 on that die, and and you're just out of luck, and there's no recourse for that,
Right.
You know, and that's okay. Fine, have a bigger bonus, or that's just a bad luck roll, or whatever. But when you roll under a 5 rolls in a row, it feels pretty unsatisfying.
It gets frustrating.
And I think when you
Yeah.
have a game like Powered by the Apocalypse or something like that, or Savage Worlds is a little bit better too because it's multiple dice and you have a bell curve of probability and you have something to ameliorate the effect of like, my awesome character does not feel awesome. You know, like that's less exciting. You know, the other thing I love about Powered by the Apocalypse or Masks,
It's not a bell curve, it's an inverted V.
well, it's
2 dice. The best games use 3.
okay.
Just saying.
Okay.
That's the bell curve.
The hero system.
Yeah.
Hero system.
And GURPS.
Yeah. More dice is better. I agree.
It flattens it out.
The point is, also, none of those games really encourage cooperation the way that Powered by the Apocalypse does.
Yeah.
When you can take a defend move or an assist move and you're actually doing something together and it's encouraging that storytelling and you're being rewarded for doing so, where, you know, in D&D, if I turn around and I say, well, I want to help Gina do this thing, I just don't get to do my cool thing.
Yeah.
You know, that's all it is oh, okay, well, let's all ramp up and make sure Gina can cast Fireball next turn because that's the only thing that's going to work. Well, okay, 5 other people sacrifice their turns and, you know, don't get to do anything that fun.
Right.
You know what's really interesting is that for me, and I think it depends on the player totally, so this isn't the story games are the answer for all those things, but that is definitely playing story games and stuff like Powered by have influenced how I play all games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because even if I don't, I will literally give up a turn, you know, in D&D to do a character-y thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do the same thing now because it's not fun to not do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Heavy Metal just said that's why she doesn't use maps. And I know we've talked about that before where it's theater of the mind versus...
Yeah, in anything but D&D, I get it, but D&D requires
it really does.
Even this guy in this situation, if the guy had drawn out a map and said, there's a bunch of cargo over here.
Yeah, cargo,
he wouldn't have
gold,
forgotten
there's
about
all this
it.
other
Right.
stuff. There's this glowing thingy over here. Like
It is very easy because I've done it. I've gotten into this trap myself, where you get into a combat, and particularly if the combat drags on a little bit, where you get into the okay, what's the next thing that happens? Okay, what's the next thing? That
I roll a
Try to
hit. I
expedite
roll
it.
a
I roll a
miss.
hit. I roll a hit. I roll a hit. And as GMs, we need, and I'm talking to myself here, we need to have the awareness to go, we're spiraling.
Mm-hmm.
We've
Right.
got to break out of the spiral, and you've got to shake things up. You've got to move things in a different direction.
Well, I mean, one of the things is, at least for me, for the most part, combat isn't interesting. The resolution of the combat is the interesting part.
yeah,
Powered by the Apocalypse game is, correct me if I'm wrong, because I have yet to play one. Shut up. Is that can very often get resolved in one or two dice rolls.
maybe. Yeah, it depends on what's happening.
Depends on what's happening.
You have to give yourself a little bit of credit because you've played dogs.
Yeah, I put Dogs in the Vineyard, but that's not
Right.
an Apocalypse.
No,
roll.
it's not. But a lot of Vincent's brain
Went into dogs.
that went into
Yeah, that's true. I've never played
Apocalypse
it, but I know
World?
what it is.
It
starts in that game.
weird dice mechanic. That's a whole picking the
Yeah,
dice.
no. It's definitely, it's not powered by, but it's like, I kind of talked about this a few podcasts ago, and it's a total tangent. But it's like, it's the powered by is not just about the 2d6 and the 6 and under, 7 and 9, and there's the kind of narrative
Yeah. But
storytelling. It's like,
to me, that 7 and 9 though is what makes it so good.
Yeah.
Is the shitty success.
Right.
And that's like I kind of suggested in BBT, but the chat room was all, no, make a terrible failure. which is fine, right? Like everybody wants different things from their game. But the thing that gets me so fired up and has made me into an apostle of the apocalypse is that idea of, there's the fail scale, right? 2 to 6 is fail. 7 and up, you basically did what you wanted to do. If you got 10 or better, critical success, great job.
Right.
But that 7 to 9 range is like, you kind of did it, and some shitty stuff happens too.
Go ahead, G.
No, and it's that fiction first that generates the moves that give you the hits, the 7 to 9, or the miss. So it's fiction first before you're saying,
right.
oh, I hit and here's the color on my hit. It's like, I'm going to go do this thing, and it's like, what does that trigger in the game?
See, that to me sounds more palatable than what the FFG Star Wars thing is.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
you shot the guy, but you also got a despair, and you got like 4 complications.
It's way more organic.
You know what that is a little bit like, the way you just said that? I never really thought about this before, is Fate.
Yeah.
Where
You
it's
have to
like
calculate everything after the roll.
Well, and because the roll in Fate is the start of the narrative, and it's like, where does the narrative
Or it's
grow
the middle
from
of the
that?
narrative.
Yeah.
Because there might be narrative that leads up to it, and then
Right.
there's a die
No, of
roll,
course
and then
there
there's
is.
more narrative
But
that.
on that action, rolling your dice is the start,
Is the start of it.
that
Right,
narration.
right.
So that's interesting.
One of the things,
Never thought about that.
the 7-9, but the thing is that even on a 6- in a powered by game, that doesn't mean we don't advance the story.
Right.
That doesn't mean we don't advance
Right.
the thing that
Right.
happened. What it means is that something really interesting happened too.
Yeah,
if
it's
you're,
just- it's
if
not
you're
a-
in combat, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're in combat, that means the GM gets a move.
Means
that
the
can
GM
hurt
it's
you
it's
in some
not
way.
just a big whiff.
Right.
You know, it's
Whereas
not.
with D&D, don't get me wrong, love D&D, love playing.
Yeah,
but
I
with
do too.
D&D, you roll a lower than a 5.
Chances are you're
You're
going to
not.
wait
You're
10
the thing
minutes
you're
till your
not.
next turn.
You wanted to do did not happen.
Yep.
Right.
You did not
It's just a whiff.
smack the Ifrit with the thing that would send him back to his home plane.
Right.
Right.
or the flip side, you get off this awesome spell that has a resist. I have like a -1 to my wisdom, and I roll an 18.
Right.
Oh, I made it. I made the DC.
Right.
Yeah.
Too bad.
Yeah. Sucks to be you.
Yeah.
You know.
Relative D-Pod, drink again.
Oh, cheers.
Sweet. Drinking. I can do that. But, and I think this is true for all games, not just this circumstance that he's talking about. But don't get so bound up in the idea of the dice. Let the dice resolve the narrative thing that you're doing,
Right.
rather than just be, okay, I'm going to shoot the next Nazi.
Also, if you're getting bored in a half-hour combat, and I would say half-hour combat in most role-playing games
It's speedy.
is pretty
Is
fast.
fucking amazing.
Right.
Honestly.
Well, certainly, I mean, I think D&D Pathfinder or Pathfinder is an outlier,
Yes.
I would say.
Yeah.
Shadowrun combat is extensively.
Is it?
long.
Okay.
Yep.
So, Zach, I've got a listening suggestion for you, and this is not to toot my own horn. On our actual play feed, go back and find a series of games called Sturmgeist, because it is a Savage Worlds 1930s era pulp game.
Is that STURM?
STURMGEIST.
Don't look for my 1930s Savage Worlds pulp game because I didn't record it, and all they did was kill a bear.
Now I want to rerun my Nazis on Dinosaurs game. That was a lot of fun.
Oh my god, that was one of my con games.
Oh, really?
Yeah, what the hell was that game called? But it was Savage Worlds. Yeah, and
Nazis
it was
on
Nazis
dinosaurs.
on dinosaurs.
I used to run it in
space.
I ran it in Aberrant, and then I ran it in Wild Talents, and now I want to run it in Masks. I think it would be a lot more fun in Masks.
And Stork is totally missing it because apparently now I am raging people on whatever I said that was super.
What'd you say?
What did you
I don't
enrage them
know.
on? Oh, they're just
Something
mad.
about-
They're just mad at you.
Yeah, saying something. I apparently said that fate was like the chicken entrail dice, and that I said
Well, you did
something else.
kind of make that allusion.
No, I didn't.
But you
I
do.
said
You
it's
have to divide the dice.
comparatively
It's a bunch of pluses and minuses.
that
And
it's a springboard
figure
for
out the
further
stuff
narration.
after- right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did
You-
not say
you-
it was this chicken entrails.
No, that's what she said. That's exactly
Yeah.
what she said.
That's
Go to the forum.
It's totally what I said. You probably play
Give
back.
her what for.
And suddenly what I said is totally going to be what you said I said. So that's totally true.
Well, you did draw a line between them.
No.
Oh, Monkey
Yeah.
Fun Dave. How dare you?
Right? I know. I'm a fake gamer girl.
I mean, how dare you have opinions about any of this?
Right.
Yeah. I know.
Creating a group from Manuel.
Manuel,
Well,
your turn, G.
Oh, okay, cool.
Unless you've read. You've read, right?
Nope.
Oh, yeah.
I know. Well, and Sergito's like, stop being so damn divisive. I
Yeah.
am.
You are.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to talk to you
I
about
am.
your behavior
I
on the
know.
forum.
I know, and I'm pretty outspoken on the podcast.
Yep.
Lots of hate mail. Yeah. Okay.
Everyone should get hate mail.
I know. That's kind of true.
If you don't have
It's
somebody
kinda true.
complaining about you once in a while, you're probably not saying anything valuable.
It's true. Go back to the kitchen and put down the dice.
wow. That's.
That gets the double middle
Well, I thought it was
fingers.
going to be double bird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that was hilarious because
Yeah.
I know where that comes. It was hilarity.
Yeah, totally. So,
Yeah,
hilarity that could still deserve to be flipped off.
that's really funny.
One of my crowning achievements in high school was getting my theater teacher to flip me off. And she was so infuriated with me.
Yeah, maybe I the way I said it was really stupid. But Vampire 54 so sweetly says, I agreed with what Gina said, but maybe I thought of it differently.
Interpreted differently
Yeah.
from what.
Well,
yeah.
no, I got the point you were
Aw.
making, and it made sense, and you were right.
Yeah.
No, it was funny because I was like, what'd I say? What'd I say? It was funny.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Okay, you made an allusion to the
Back to
two
the
things
kitchen
in the
and put
same
down the
breath.
I did.
Is really what you did.
Yeah, no, it was blasphemy. I know it was. I was, yeah. See, what you guys don't know is on my character sheet in real life, I have stuff written you don't even know about. And every once in a while, you got to make an insight check.
That's funny.
That's
Because
right.
there's shit creeping out all the time. I'm really,
That's like when you've had a lot of curry and
Yeah.
there's.
yeah,
No, that's a whole different thing.
it's a different kind of shit.
She said shit creeping out. That's
Yeah.
all I could think of.
That's just because you hit 40 this year, man.
No, that was awesome. No, it was totally
Oh,
awesome.
did you? Congratulations.
Yeah.
It's all
in-
downhill from here.
Yeah.
Oh,
in
happy-
April. I turned 40 in April. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. We've got a decade on you, dude.
And
for you,
congratulations
my
to you.
You guys are funny.
Better you than me.
That was good.
Tripepto.
I know. Sorry if I said stupid things, but
I can't watch
Sorry,
the
not
chat
sorry.
room right now. Sorry, I'm good.
Okay,
Creating a group from Manuel.
from Manuel. Hey, douche, and the douches. You're douchey. That's what it does
Yes.
say.
I get it.
I've written in twice about my terrible gaming experiences and the Stockholm syndrome that makes me want to go back again.
Oh.
You, me, and Patty Hearst.
Oh boy.
It worked out finally. I've mastered 2 one-shots recently, which were really good. The second one was 0 prep, and the people asked me to do a campaign. Oh my god, we're playing Blades in the Dark in a steampunk Warhammer
Whoa.
40k
I
world.
want to play that.
Such an
I-
awesome game.
Can I be your friend,
Is there a
Manuel?
PBTA 40K?
No, I think
No,
this
there's
dude's
a-
making it up.
Blades in the Dark is a PBTA.
Oh, it is?
Yeah,
yes.
oh my
Okay,
god, Blades
great.
in the Dark is my
I
new...
have to go look
Yeah.
up.
It is spectacular.
Look
I
up.
Yeah, total tangent.
Is it like a Warhammer 40k riff?
No.
It's a gothic steampunk.
Oh, okay.
Oh, but that would fit in Warhammer
Supernatural,
easy.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It is so elegant and such an amazing game.
Is it readable? Unlike the Hogwarts?
Yeah,
World?
it's yeah, I think that the tricky part of it was that it took so long to make sure that it got nailed down and was really working the way that John Harper wanted it to work, that there was a lot of playing it before it even, we had hard copies in our hands.
We started several months before it came out because our GM had a pre-release version, and we had played several months, and by the time the actual book came out, we were done.
Oh, really?
Funny.
Yeah. No, it's
Was it
not
put
so
out by
good.
Evil Hat?
Yes.
Oh,
It wasn't initially. It was a Kickstarter, and then Evil Hat put it out and distributed
Oh my god, it is
it.
such a good game.
Yeah, it came up today because I was like, hey, I bet you could kind of reskin Blades in the Dark to do The Expanse. Anyway. Because it's really
Excuse me, I'm leaving now. I have to go do something.
cool. Yeah, exactly.
Hey, in other news, I've made a little bit of progress on my PBTA
You
hack that
have?
I'm working on.
Sweet.
I had jury duty last week and this week, and I took my laptop with me and rage worked on it in between, in our
Oh
little
my God,
breaks.
that's awesome.
I was like, I'm gonna put work in on this and show you. I don't know who I was showing, but I was rage working on
Excellent.
it. So hopefully,
Are you still in? Are you still in jury duty or out?
I'm out. We finished today.
Okay.
We had a verdict and we're done.
Excellent.
Cool. Okie dokie. So they're doing Blades in a steampunk Warhammer 40k world. It will be me and 6 players who rotate depending on who has time. So max 4 players per session, though, which is awesome.
Yes.
I'm really looking
The number
forward
shall
to
be
it.
4.
Yes.
4 shall be the number of the players,
Yep.
and the number of the players shall be 4.
Really looking forward to it, but thinking back, most of my campaigns got the death sentence at character creation. So I need this to go well. In the campaign, they play some kind of criminal gang, from smugglers over assassins to cult, and have to survive and rise in a very hostile city. It's a pretty hippie game, so lots of rule of cool type
Awesome.
of stuff,
I
right?
approve.
Rule of cool is awesome.
Yep.
And while the setting is dark, the one-shots always went way overboard.
As they should.
One-shots. The rule book encourages building characters through plays, so I don't expect more than a paragraph or 2 of backstory. I don't want much in-group conflict since I fear it will escalate quickly into my character wouldn't work with these people. This is pertinent to our conversation earlier.
Classic.
Right? How can I get the players to connect characters in a meaningful way? How should I handle players that dislike the gang type that the others want to play or want to play characters that don't fit in, besides simply shutting them down? What are your tips and tricks to guide a group of 4 to 6 players to create a coherent group that is enjoyable for everybody? Really good question. Dankeschön. Have a drink. We'll do the drink. P.S. I'm also starting to play in a new campaign, but we play an obscure old German system from the 80s.
Is it the same one that other guy
Oh
was
my
talking
God,
about?
I bet
the
it
black
is.
eye.
That would be
The
amazing.
Schwarze
Auge.
Schwarze Auge.
Auge.
Das Schwarze Auge.
Exactly what Stu said. So we'll see how it goes. PPS, thanks for answering my email so quickly. PPPS, if you read the email after I already have my session 0, fuck you.
We may
Yeah.
have. This is like a 2.5 week old email.
Oh my
all right.
goodness.
Well, I got to jump into some of this.
I think
Yeah, you should. I'm trying to get
work
a thing.
backwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've talked about this
The
before.
tips and tricks to guide a group of players to create a coherent group
Yeah.
that is enjoyable for everybody. Tell them they have to.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
In Blades, you set up the group before you actually create the characters.
yeah. You
Oh,
just
okay.
tell
Yeah.
everybody you have to agree what this is. Are we smugglers? Are we assassins?
They have to come to a meeting of the minds about that. Now that might be that, it's like, okay, maybe I don't really want to be a smuggler and everybody else does, but I have to get on board with being a smuggler.
You can
Yeah,
can you be a smuggler who doesn't want to be a smuggler?
Yes.
I'm an enforcer for this smuggler group. I don't actually
Right.
smuggle anything, but I carry a heavy stick and follow them around.
Right.
You can do all kinds of stuff with that.
And within any kind of gang, because that's what you're doing. You're creating a gang. And you start out as a very, very low-level gang, and the goal is to become a higher-level gang and get more power and expand your turf and whatnot. And within the gang, there are all manner of different roles. I mean,
Yes.
you've got
You might even be a chef. Your Assassin's Guild might need a chef.
I don't know if there's a chef, but
But you could have one.
Is there a playbook?
I don't
There's
think
not
there's a chef
there's not a
playbook.
chef
Yeah.
There's
playbook.
not a chef playbook. But you could totally.
You go make those shitty playbooks and put them on drive-through.
How dare you?
The chef. I'm gonna make
With the cleavers, this is the best assassin ever. No one
Right.
expects him. He's got
Oh, okay,
poison
there you
and
go.
cleavers and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, with the shotgun
the
tape to
cutter.
the underside
That's
of
the cutter.
of
That's the cutter.
salad
Cutter.
table.
Yeah.
So you can play an assassin.
You can be a cutter
There's
who's a
just not
chef.
Who's a chef? Yeah, that's all I mean.
You can do that.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
You could totally do that.
I'm down with
Ho-
your.
hopefully he hasn't had first session yet, because the other thing I want to say is when you sit down to decide all this stuff, it has to be a session where all 6 people are there.
Yes.
You cannot do this with some people missing, because all of the tie-ins and character stories and all that it matters, and you can't just fill people in
Yeah.
later. If it's this type of game, you must have everyone there.
Also, to get the characters to connect, there are bonds. The bonds have meaning. The bonds have teeth.
I was actually looking, and I redid my iPad, so I don't have my. I don't remember there's not typical PBTA bonds
They're,
in that
they're
game.
different, but they're
It's no, I don't.
Well,
Yeah, they're different. They're different bonds.
you can
that set
totally
up.
you can
Yeah.
hijack the ones from the Star Wars
Oh,
game.
totally.
The Star Wars game one is very easily modified, and then go grab the when we first came together from Masks, mod that a little bit, and that will pull your whole session together.
Yeah, and truly, I mean, there are a lot of Stu does a lot of character creation questions, or you can ask bond questions just to establish that anyway. And
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, this is not Blades, but I could totally get playing a faction or a gang that maybe, if you have 6 people and 4 people want to do something and 2 feel really inspired by something else, you're going to go with the majority rules, and you're going to have to try to have player buy-in for that other piece. But just find a way, player-wise, that you would create a character that you would still have fun playing that buys into that group concept.
Yeah, or as a friend of the
Yeah.
team, or
Yeah, exactly. You just figure it out.
In Firefly, Shepard Book is not a smuggler.
Oh,
he's
yeah.
Right.
He's
Oh,
not,
exactly.
I mean, it does turn out he's lots of things, but
Yeah.
but that when that guy sat down to make his character, he's very different.
I want to play a cleric.
Yeah, he's very different
this?
from
Who's a ninja?
Jane and Zoe and Mal, and even the pilot who has
Right.
something active to do
called a
all the
monk.
time. He rolled a monk, and
Right.
it was very different from all the
Yeah.
other. And he has the moral quandary all the time, and
you can create a character who
Spoiler alert!
you can
No.
create a character who doesn't really want
No, you can't play a ninja.
who doesn't want to be a smuggler. You can create that character. However, what's going on in the game is smuggling.
right.
So
Yeah.
you need to find a way to fit yourself into the scenario, even if it's not something that you want to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have to say,
Or
that-
skip and play the next game.
Or skip
If
and
you
play
really
the next
like-
one. If you-
Totally.
I'm morally opposed to smugglers.
Yeah, you're
Then
like, I hate that
skip
game. I
it.
played
Yeah.
92
good job.
games of that.
You're not playing yourself,
Yeah.
so you can. That's
Yeah.
my feeling. The problem
what?
the problem my home group has is everybody sits down. We have all the playbooks for a new bunch of classes or whatever, and everybody's saying, "I'll pick whatever somebody else pick
Right.
first," because. No, but everybody has like 4 playbooks they want to play and they can't decide, and they're like, somebody pick these, so I can narrow down my choices.
Put some dice on a table. Roll, pick.
Yeah.
Now.
I
you
get in
pick.
trouble for doing that all the time because
Yeah.
I'm
We
like,
can
I'll
turn
pick
them
left.
upside down and say,
I'll
okay,
pick
pick
left.
one.
Yeah.
I got to do a little playtest of Urban Shadows, and
Oh, cool.
before I
Shadows is
went, I've said, okay, when I get there, I'm either going to play the Fae or the Wolf, and that'll help me narrow it down because I'd read
Oh,
it ahead
totally.
of time. I'm like, I want to do this playtest, and I got there. Nobody wanted the Fae or Wolf, but I just went, I want to play the Vamp. Just completely changed my mind at the last minute. And
That's okay.
Yeah.
that sort of thing happens when with these types of games.
Yep.
But that was also partially because I heard kind of the other ideas at the table, and I was like, oh, I have a really
Yeah.
good idea for a vampire that would
Yep.
fit into what's happening here. I'm going to
Yep.
do that.
Right.
Now,
Now, I have something to say about the 4 to 6 players, but you're going to have a max of 4. I tried that with Tomorrow. What was it called?
Oh, you're
Ashes of Exodus.
Yeah.
Ashes of Exodus. There's something that happens when there is a larger group of people than the number of people you need.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what happens is it murders accountability.
Yeah.
Oh.
So when
Hadn't thought of that.
when there's
Yes.
5 people who are responsible for making sure that one thing gets done, it almost never gets done because they always assume that
Yeah.
one of the other people is going to do it.
Yes.
So I would strongly consider finding 4 committed players.
Yeah. The
You're going to have more success that way.
The way we did this is for my regular home game is like 6 or 7 people total. But I set that up with the knowledge of if everyone shows up, I will still run it.
Right.
Right. And it is whoever shows up that day will get the next part of the story. And if you don't show up, your character's gonna miss out, and you're gonna be doing
Right.
something else, and that's fine. But the ultimate decision was not everyone. There's gonna be most weeks not everyone shows up, and we just roll forward,
Yeah.
and that's the understanding with everybody in that game. They know ahead of time. Yeah, if everyone shows up, we'll run it. But we picked a number that we knew. Okay, if it gets to 6 or 7, that's a big game, but we'll muscle through it.
Right.
The once a year that actually happens.
Right.
Right.
So
I ran the 4th edition D&D game I ran, which at one point got up to like 11 players.
That is too
which was
many.
Stupid.
yeah.
But I would not even deal with characters missing.
Oh yeah, you just don't even mention them.
I even with 4, if I've got one person out, they're just not there. I don't usually.
or they're doing something cool. And
I don't know who you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Kimmy was out for our last Masks game, and we didn't even talk about what she did. She just was not present.
Right.
Yeah. She
I
went
will-
out for a smoke.
I will let her tell me what on Monday when we play again. I will
Yeah.
let her tell me what she was doing for.
I'll be fascinated to find out what my glitter boy was doing in the last game session. Because it ended.
Oh, definitely.
I knew what I was going to do. I was going to jump over the wall and go and start chasing after the things that attacked us.
Yeah.
But I didn't tell anyone that, so I may have been like repairing my suit or something. I don't know.
Well, for Manuel's question, I think like my 2 cents is how do I get the players to connect in a meaningful way?
Yeah.
Make them.
Bonds.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you go through bonds. The Star Wars
Yep.
bonds, I think, are the best ones. The ones in Masks are great, but there's only 2 each. And
There's another way you could approach that, and that is in Fate when you're creating when you're creating aspects. The last 3 are called the crossing paths, and the first one you create for yourself, and it is my first adventure when I left home. Then you hand your character sheet to somebody else at the table, and they go from that one and they create one for themselves. That is how they figured into your
Oh,
adventure.
interesting. That's a fun way to do it.
And the same for the third one. And so that could be a good way for you to do that.
Yeah, but I think the point is that if these players are not used to automatically doing that, you need to prompt them.
Right,
Like,
you got
that
to
is
give them a
prompt.
seed.
That is a prompt. The bonds are a prompt.
Yep.
That's a way to do that. The how we
And
first
tell
came
them
together.
ahead of time. You guys are going to make characters who are going to work together.
You're a gang.
Yes.
Right.
You are all on the same team.
That's we had
and-
that. We had that guy that had suggested give the play. Do you remember the everyone rushes out into an alley and there's a dead body, and 4 people go chasing off after the guy who shot him. Make one of those 4
Make
people.
one of those 4 people.
Oh,
yeah.
That's a fun idea.
So that way you give them the beginning instance of the game. Here's how the game is going to
Yeah.
start.
Right.
Yeah.
5 people step up and say, "I'll help."
Yeah.
Make one of those 5
But
people.
in the case of
Yeah.
Blades, it's, oh, you have created a gang of whatever. Now, make a character who would be part of that gang
yes.
for whatever reason.
Yeah.
The other thing that I like to do sometimes if you don't have Blades or one of these prompts in front of you is like what we did in Desert of Despair is something I do a lot where the very first adventure is, all right, you guys just beat this dragon or whatever, you just overcame this thing. What did your character do there?
Right.
Right? And then we're all automatically talking about
absolutely.
what you did in the past and what now you're at the party.
Right.
Telling everybody about how this went and what the awesome thing that you did there and what you did together.
Another thought, keying off of that, would be, okay, so you fought the dragon, and you are now celebrating. Tell me what Gina did
Oh yeah,
that
that's
was
super
so,
fun.
in that fight that was so cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, what was the thing? And I would frame it that way. What was the thing that they did that was so awesome?
Sure. Oh, and if I have players who've never gamed before, I will even do this before we pick classes and everything else. Because somebody will go, I think I used a bow and arrow. Cool, let's make a ranger. You know, or a fighter that's an archer, or whatever. But you're going to get their gut instinct of what they think feels cool, and that's what they should do.
Bill Roper played in a game not long ago where they had no idea what their character was when they started, and so like a thing would happen, like you're standing in the middle of the street and there's a horse barreling down the street at you. What do you do? It's, I nimbly dodge out of the way. Oh, nimbly sounds like you're good at dexterity. Put down a 16 for your dex.
Nice, nice. I like that.
Oh yeah, that was the Scott Kurtz.
That was a Scott Kurtz game. Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's
So
a cool idea
If
too.
you punch the horse for daring to charge you, do you get a big strength?
I
bonus?
guess.
Horse.
Or a low intelligence.
Yeah. Maybe both.
I can also see, I don't know, we kind of talked about this but didn't, but the fear when you're playing kind of like a street gang, that there are going to be players, player versus player stuff.
Yeah.
So beyond the fact that people maybe weren't into the initial concept of the gang or the crew, just like worrying about people double crossing
Yeah.
and kind of angling for power and that sort of thing, and maybe you just those are the jam things where you have to sit down and go, this isn't really a kind of game
Yeah.
that interests me.
I just outright say,
Yeah.
like, the
Yeah.
player versus player is not a focus
For
of this
some reason,
game.
the 4 of you or the 6 of you are integral to holding this group together, and you recognize that, and because I'm not really into the infighting and the backstabbing and the court intrigue.
In Apocalypse World, one of the things that Vincent says is your characters may not like each other, but they are allies.
Yes. Yeah. And the other thing is, on that point, is I don't just flatly say, no, you can't do that, but at the start of the game, I'm saying...
Except for playing a ninja.
Well, right. Well, I like ninjas, so
No,
they
that's
turn
just
up.
Stu's
But you
funny
can't
story.
play a ninja.
Well, that's what monks are for.
Yeah. Exactly.
But anyway, the
ninja cleric.
The point is, it's at the start of the game. I will say, look, we're not building in this backstab juice.
Yeah.
Right. That's not where we're going. But if you have in-character interactions during the game, and your character is like, I can't believe you did that, like.
Yeah.
Right.
There will be in-character actions result in in-character consequences.
Yep.
And then the gloves are off, and by all means. But let's, as a group, agree that that's probably going to be less fun than...
I don't know if it's necessarily
I mean,
not
it depends,
fun.
right?
Yeah, I think
it depends.
on what.
And there's a
kind
lot of
fun-
people that,
Yeah.
I mean, now if you got people that are going to take it personally, or I can see it could be a very uncomfortable situation.
I haven't ever seen it gone well, and that's maybe just my microcosm,
I
but
think a lot of it depends on your players.
Have you listened to the Moat game?
I haven't, and I've heard that that's gone
Scully?
very well. And
Tim Huntley was playing Scully, who was doing. All he was doing. Well, I won't say what he was doing, but he would do things that would make things incredibly complicated for a couple of the other characters. And at one point, Samantha was playing one of the characters who was getting kind of screwed with. She's like, "I'm gonna kill him," and Tim's sitting right next to him. It's not about Tim. It's about Scully.
It's largely about the players. I haven't been in a situation where that went well, so that's just my personal
Is that maybe from your early days of gaming?
Yeah, probably.
I'm thinking of the vampire game that Gina and I played in, where we had a lot of. We didn't have player versus player violence until the very last act of the game.
Right.
There's a lot. I mean, it's
But there was a lot
of competing
and there was
agendas
tension.
and-
Oh yeah, tension all day. That's great.
Well,
That's
but
real.
Kimmy's character had to punch Stork's character because she was Prince of the Island and he wasn't paying attention. And after that, he's like, "Okay, I now respect you."
I will now pay attention.
Yes, ma'am.
You're the alpha.
I am on that.
Exactly.
I will shut the F up.
If that's what has to happen, then that's the story point.
Yeah.
I think what I like the worst case scenario of this kind of stuff is like, okay, well they're all asleep. Okay, well I'm gonna sneak over and steal that stuff out of his bag, Like,
Oh.
but okay, you're on the same team. Okay, and then I'm gonna slit his throat. Like, what? What?
I've
Gina and I
had
were-
characters in my old GURPS fantasy game, which ran in the 90s.
Yeah.
I had characters kill other player characters.
Yeah.
And that there was, I've told this story many times, sorry, but there was a player who was playing a mage, very powerful mage, who was like paranoid and delusional.
Oh no.
And he would think he was obsessed with demons, and that demons were possessing people. And it had happened where he had accused one of the players in a very tense combat situation where they were fighting something really scary, accused one of the other player characters of being possessed, and the other player it was all in character, but the other players were like, when's it going to be me? And so they set up a situation and they assassinated him
Oh yeah.
in game, and he came back with another character who was not a paranoid,
Yeah.
delusional.
Gina and I were playing a Pathfinder game where
He didn't quit the game, or
Yeah.
he may have gotten a little miffed. I don't know. He might
Well,
have, but
you know.
he did. He didn't leave or rage
Yeah.
quit or anything like that. He came back and play a different character. He didn't play that same character again.
Lesson learned, hopefully. Yeah.
Gina and I were playing a Pathfinder game, and one of the other characters was a rogue, and went down in a pit, and was searching a body, and the rest of us were all standing up there watching him. I mean, just watching him. He said to the GM, he said, "I'm going to steal half the loot and pocket it." And I looked at the GM. I said, "Notice check," and the GM said, "Yeah." And I rolled, and I got
notice versus stealth. That's,
I got like a 24 because on my notice roll, so I see him, and as soon as he gets back up, I turn to one of their characters and said, "Search him."
Yeah.
Don't hit the player. Yeah, hate the game. A rogue's got to be a rogue.
Sure. Yeah.
No,
It's like if the rogue rides on your back across the river and stings
Right.
you
He's
and
gonna
steals
sting
all
you.
your loot, it's because he's a rogue.
Right.
You
It's
know what?
best just not to allow them in
Yes.
the game.
Probably.
Oh my god. The 4th edition D&D game with rogues and their sidebars. Talk about sidebars going wrong.
Because
Yeah.
you had a rogue. That was the game you had the rogue that stole all the stuff from all the peoples, right? So there was a lot of.
Yeah. Don't blame the game system. Blame the player.
Right.
Yeah. That's a character choice.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Are we done?
Yeah.
I think so.
I
I think so.
Well, I'm
Good
gonna-
letters.
I'm going to end this.
Oh, dude.
Thank you for joining us for Season 19, Episode 19 of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. My name is Stu.
My name is Stork.
Nope.
Nope, it's Gina. Send your
I'm
letters to.
Nope.
Yeah, send your letters to.
I'm good.
I'm Jason. Definitely not Stork.
Thank you very much. We'll see you next week, 8
Yeah.
p.m. Pacific time, right here, happyjacks.org/live.
Yeah.
Sunday, we have Mode of Sin.
Mote of Sin.
31 or something.
31.
And then on Monday, we've
Masks.
got Masks.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's it right now. We're going to have a new game coming up. I won't say anything about it yet. And that's it. We'll see you in September 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th at FutureCon GameX?
Gateway.
Gateway 2017.
GameX.
Also, if you're going to be at Gen Con, I'll tweet you. Let me know if you're going to be there. Go to the forum, happyjack's.org/forum. Thank you very much. We'll leave a song.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Happy Jack's podcast will be douchebag zone. When spring sprightly wind comes rushing from my arse, fa la 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 la, fa la 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 la, fa la la la, fa la 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 la. A zephyr sweet and clear, emanating from my rear, la 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 la. The saddest moment yet is to suffer when that's wet, fa la 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 la, fa la 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 la, fa la la la, fa la 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 la. I sing with joy most high, because my wind is dry, la 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 la. See how the crowds they part at the smelling of my fart. Fa la la la, fa la la la, fa la la la, fa la 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 la. The ladies blanch in fright when they smell what I ate last night. Fa la 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 la.
The preceding program has been a presentation of the Angry Folk Media Empire.
Bum 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 bum.